That sounded like I got some feedback. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of Southern Tier. Happy to be here with you again today. It is Sunday. It is our live stream where we get to talk to you. We get to hear your voices and your chats and your phone calls to tell us exactly what you think about what's going on in the world. And God, there is a lot going on in the world right now. Ever so much. By the way, before we even do anything else, let me just also mention that you're not hearing about this. The major news media, we just checked all the news just before we came on, and no one is talking about the Lincoln Memorial, that there is a protest going on, a right of center protest, a conservative and Republican protest in Washington, D.C. Right now, it is happening, and there's over 20,000 people at least. And this is because it is against the vaccine mandates in Washington, D.C. So that is happening as we speak. It's within the last hour it's been happening. And absolutely no one in the news media is telling you this because they do not want you to know that people, a large number of people across the United States, do not believe in the vaccine mandates. They are protesting that, and that there is a large... Think about it. When I covered that in Binghamton, New York, in the Broome County region, there were 4 separate protests with hundreds of people in each and every event. The only time the news media covered was the first event, and they had to be dragged kicking and screaming because they knew about the event ahead of time and refused to cover it until there were 300, 400 people on scene, and then they had to cover it because of the conversation on social media. And they ignored it after that. That's what it is. The news media doesn't want to tell you that your neighbors believe the same thing that you believe, that the vaccine mandates are a bad thing, that the government doesn't have that right. It is an overreach of power. And the news media, working in conjunction with some politicians, want you to believe that as long as they don't tell you about it, you're just going to not do anything. You're just going to back down and do whatever they say. I want you to know that's not the case. So I wanted to start off with the fact that there is news that no one is talking about in the news media. You are being denied this information because they want you to think that the right can't protest without there being a riot. They want you to be in fear, and they want you to be compliant. We need to talk about that. In addition, we need to talk about a few other things, about what's going on in the world. What are the consequences of what has been happening? The fact that the Biden-Harris administration do not have an international policy. They have no idea what they are doing. They are literally winging it. And this is supposed to be, Joe Biden is supposed to be some kind of expert. He has all this 47 years of experience. He knows these world leaders. He's been vice president. He's gone and spoken with them. And we were told that that would make the world more peaceful because he had these relationships, because he knew these people, that the United States would be more at peace. There would be less of a national security risk, and the world would be better off than we had been under President Trump. And now we see that's not true. We see that that is a lie, that has failed us. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. By the way, we can talk about anything that you want. This is a conversation around the world with everyone because we believe in the First Amendment. We believe in your right to speak, whether you agree with us or not. It's perfectly fine. We want to hear your voice. And you can call in to 607-242-1582. You see the number up above the screen right now, and it'll be scrolling past a couple times. You can reach us there. You can also reach us on YouTube, Facebook, at DLive, and Twitter. I think at least one of the Facebook channels is down at the moment and refusing to show us live, which is a bit upsetting, but that's okay. There's 2 Facebook channels, so if you can't see me on my name, go to Voss Political Commentary. This is really big because we have so much happening in our nation and around the world that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. That seems to be taking us down a path. Maybe it's me. You guys can tell me what you think. But it feels like the world is getting closer and closer to just chaos. That we're getting closer and closer to just a bunch of dictatorships all over the world. And I really want to see and I'm just looking forward to seeing your comments. Tell me what you think about this, folks, because I really think we are getting closer to a dictatorship. We're getting closer to seeing several of them around the world. China being able to take over Taiwan. We're seeing Russia going into the Ukraine, which could lead to Europe. We're watching North Korea firing off hypersonic missiles over and over again. And we have the anemic actions of the Biden-Harris administration that doesn't seem to be stopping anyone. And I don't think that's a strange thing. I mean, remember, it's the Biden-Harris administration, well, the Obama Biden administration that went around the world literally bowing to world leaders and apologizing for the existence of the United States and the fact that we have the best quality of life, we have the most freedom, and that we have the most power all at the same time. And I don't think that's something we should apologize for, ever. That is not something to apologize for. But now we have the continuation of that Obama mentality, and we see that Biden's here this week. And this is insane. And you saw this. He went out and he told the world, well, Russia's going to take over the Ukraine. We already know in December, as we have covered on this program before, he already put pressure on the Ukraine to give up a bunch of its land, to lose its sovereignty, to allow Russia to take over. He's already said that in December. He reinforced that this week. And everybody started jumping around saying, no, that's not what he meant. He didn't quite mean it like that. He didn't mean that Russia can do whatever it wants. Well, too late. He said it, and everyone knows it. And we've seen people like Anthony Blinken, the Secretary of State, go around and try and fix it. But let me show you what you aren't hearing in the United States. This is what's happening in Germany. This is what the rest of Europe is talking about. And let me show you what they're saying.
More significant than they believed. One thing, Brenda, I always experience, and that is, I think, really worrisome, is that more and more people really turn their back towards politics. They don't care anymore. They're not interested anymore. They're so tired of that. And I think this really is a huge threat for this democracy here.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a big threat to democracies everywhere. Let's broaden the scope of Biden's first year in office and place it in a global context. I want you to listen to what he said last night regarding the 21st century struggle between democracies and autocracies.
Unless you can reach consensus in a democracy, you cannot sustain the democracy. And so this is a real test.
Coming up in a moment.
Whether or not my counterpart in China is right or not when he says autocracies are the only thing that are going to prevail because democracies take too long to make decisions and countries are too divided. I believe we're going through one of those inflection points in history.
Here it comes.
Inflection points in history. Enos, President Biden sounds like a man who may harbor secret doubts about democracy winning the day and the century against the forces of China, Russia, and company. Do you agree?
Okay, can you imagine that? This is what's being said in Europe. This is the conversation in Europe. You've never heard them have this conversation before. They are talking about the President of the United States bailing on democracy, that the United States is no longer the shining beacon of freedom, that people like in Hong Kong look to the United States and say, I just want to get a little bit like them. They want a touch of the freedoms that we have. And now we're hearing, and this is from Germany, they're looking at this and saying, well, Biden's given up on freedom. He has given up on democracy. He thinks that China and Russia will win. My God, no wonder Russia is trying to invade the Ukraine. No wonder everyone in the world is so depressed, and why we have these rogue nations that are running rampant. And if Germany is seeing this and willing to say it, my God, what are the other nations thinking? Jason mentions, ironic, he wants to get rid of the filibuster to gain absolute power. Well, again, doesn't that go into that? He's talking about, and we know that there are strong ties between communist China and the Biden family. And he's talking about China in the way that they are looking at the United States, and they're looking at the world, and they're saying, you know what, we want a dictatorship. And I think the internet is messing with this, so bear with me. But China is saying the world needs a dictatorship because democracy has failed. They didn't say that under President Trump. They were hinting at it under President Obama. But President Obama promised to transform America, and he never told you what he was going to transform it into, which we know now he's far more socialist and progressive than we had ever imagined in 2008. But no other president has anyone ever said that democracy itself is failing. And now we have under Biden, everyone acknowledging that his failure is so bad, democracy itself in the world is taking a hit, which is no wonder why there's so much more violence in the world since January of 2021. And mentions Biden is tired of democracy because he'd prefer to rule but mandate for our own good. That's what the leftists feel, she says, and he finds dissent meddlesome. It seems like that. It really does. It really, you know, I'm trying to be as fair as I can. And if there's anyone who disagrees, this is a conversation. You can tell me why. We need to have this conversation, apparently, because this is a conversation that is happening in the rest of the world. CNN isn't going to have it. MSNBC isn't going to have it. ABC and CBS, they won't tell you this. They're not going to have this. I'm watching the Deutsche Welle, German TV, and this is the conversation they're having around Europe about this. This is the conversation going on in the United Kingdom about this. And if you think that isn't going to affect your life, international trade services with America making we have 5 million less manufacturing jobs than we did in 2000. And that means we are more dependent on the rest of the world for everything that we have. You love your iPhone? Fantastic. That comes from somewhere else in the world. You love your Android? There's the new Android that just came out, the Galaxy 22, which I'm looking at. You want to buy that? Comes from somewhere else in the world. Doesn't matter what you look at. Almost everything that we buy in America comes from somewhere else. Most of it from Southeast Asia, yes. But it's all coming from somewhere else. Because thank you, President Obama, for the transforming of America from a manufacturing country where we make stuff to a service economy where we're dependent on some other nation to make the stuff for us. And this is the consequence of that. And that's why we see that when we can't get the ships, the cargo containers downloaded and transferred from one port across the country. We can't get truck drivers to go into certain states like Colorado or in California. Then we can't deliver anything. And we have store shelves that are empty across this nation in Washington, D.C., New York State, name the state. There are empty shelves and the price is going up and up. Both because of energy policies, because we don't make anything and everything has to be shipped here and we're not getting it delivered. This is a problem. So what happens in Europe, what happens in Asia absolutely affects you. It will either drive the cost of everything that you own and want to own higher, or it means you won't even have it. Jason mentions, and he is mandating the truck drivers. Yeah, California has mandates. Part of the reason why you don't, if you go to the store and you don't see some of the things you want to buy, part of the reason is some of the cargo containers in California, they have unloaded, but California won't let drivers into California to drive that stuff that's in whatever you bought from Amazon. They won't let them drive it from California to your store or to your doorstep because mandates. If the drivers don't abide by the mandates of the state of California, well, then they won't let them into the state. They won't let them touch anything, which means you get to suffer. And it's not because if the driver is from New York State or from Wisconsin or from Kansas, he doesn't, and his state doesn't have the same exact mandate that California does. California says, well, he has to do what California wants. Since when? Since when in America do we have that? And that's why these things are all connected. And that's why they're all negatively hurting you. This is why we have inflation up 7%, so that any raise you got doesn't matter. Inflation ate that. All of the checks that the government sent you, inflation ate that. The IRS is taking away all of your write-offs. They're trying to tax you. And they have IRS agents going into your alternate accounts like PayPal, going into Venmo, and all of that to investigate and check every single dollar that you get in and out so that they can take more of your money. Because, well, you have to pay more in taxes because Biden is spending all your money. Jason mentions the president did a mandate to the U.S. from Mexico and Canada. Yes, there are mandates between Canada and Mexico as well as within states, but the one in California is affecting the truck drivers predominantly. And I've spoken to several truck drivers and former truck drivers about this directly, and they have been telling me about this. This has been going on for about 2 months. So let me tie this together, folks. And I do want to, and if you disagree, you are more than happy to tell me why. If you agree, you're more than happy to call in 607-242-1582. And I see we do have a couple of spam bots here too. But, 1 second. There we go. Well, I just had to block that spam bot. So when we're thinking about this, we're getting closer and closer to war. In Germany, they think that Biden is not only weak, he is useless, that he has failed. He has failed the United States, and therefore he has failed the world. Kamala Harris is not even part of the conversation, does not exist in the conversation whatsoever. Kamala Harris isn't there. That's how much of a non-thought Kamala Harris is. So they're saying that Joe Biden is a failure. If Germany and the rest of Europe, the United Kingdom, think that Joe Biden is a complete failure and he is given up on the Ukraine, what do you think Russia thinks? What do you think China thinks? What do you think North Korea and Iran think? If they're looking at Russia running ramshot and laughing in the face of Joe Biden, if they're watching Anthony Blinken promise that there's going to be something happening, that the United States is going to do something, even as Democrats in the United States Senate refuse to sanction Russia. They are refusing to pass sanctions that have been put forth by Ted Cruz on the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. They are refusing to stop it. So even with the party of Biden, we are seeing that they are supporting Russia, directly supporting and financing Russia. And meanwhile, Blinken saying, well, there will be serious consequences. Obviously not. Because Biden is saying, and he gets the reports from the CIA, He gets the reports from the military, and they're telling him, obviously, he's come to the conclusion that whatever we're going to do doesn't really matter to Russia. They don't care, especially when we're paying for a pipeline that's going to make them even more money. And Germany can't just simply say no. They need the heat in the winter. They need the energy for their people. They can't just say, nope, we're going to make a windmill, because it doesn't work. They can't say, oh, we're just going to use a solar farm, because it doesn't work. They already have them. They don't work. They need the natural gas from Russia, because in the United States, Biden cut our ability to produce natural gas and send it out the world. We were exporting natural gas under the Trump administration, and now we're importing again. We were helping Europe to fight against Russia, and now we reverse positions, and Russia has the power again. So they're using it to their advantage. This is terrifying to me, folks. Because over and over again, we keep hearing, and I know what you're going to say. Well, Mike, we just gave the Ukraine a bunch of weapons. We just helped the Ukraine. We made this better. We gave weapons to the Ukraine, $200 million worth of weapons, about double the amount that we gave to the Taliban. We gave to the Ukraine so that they can protect themselves. You know what? You're right, we did. And again, this is what the answer is on that.
Let's bring in DW correspondent Matthias Bullinger, who joins us from...
Oh, God. Sorry.
With Home Chef, you're not just home cooking, you're
from Kiev. Matthias, what exactly has been delivered, and what does this mean for the conflict now?
Well, Ukraine is now procuring weapons from many countries. There was this big shipment from the US. There have been deliveries from Britain. Also, other countries, the Baltic states and the Netherlands, have announced shipments. It's mostly about light weapons that are easy to use and effective in case of an invasion. Anti-tank weapons, of course, complicated military systems are less urgent on the list, as it would take time to install them and train soldiers. So it's mostly weapons that would make an invasion by Russia more costly. This is the idea now, to deter Russia by making an invasion costly.
So this is the big thing. Now, I know you've been promised and told on the major news media that the United States has done everything. We're going to prevent them. We're going to stop them because of sanctions. They don't care about the sanctions. We're going to make it too costly for them. You know what they mean? We're giving handguns and rifles and a couple of bazookas to the people of the Ukraine. Not a lot of them either. Just a few. To make it a little bit harder for Russia, so they may lose a couple of extra tanks as they roll tanks down the streets and take over the country. And this is the big thing. This is the thing that's supposed to stop this. Are you kidding? Russia has over 200,000 troops available, 100,000 on the border of the Ukraine right now that can go in. And we sent them a bunch of handguns to be able to protect themselves against Russia that has everything from handguns up to nuclear missiles. Folks, this is terrifying. And news media is not telling you this. The American news media wants you to think that Biden's got this all under control. Everything's going fine. Blinken had his conversation. Russia is thinking about it. They're not sure they're going to go forward. Are you kidding me? They are lying to your face. They are lying by omission. They don't want you to see how weak the Biden administration is, because they don't want you to see the problems in this administration or the consequences of having Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in charge. They've been throwing everything at this. I mean, we even got the CIA sent out their chief of the CIA, William Burns, has gone over to Berlin and to Kiev to try and figure out some way to try and make this better, and he isn't able to do it. And Germany, for its part, Germany agrees with him. They had to fire their Vice Admiral K. Achim Schollenbach, and I'm sorry, this is German, so I can't say it properly, but Vice Admiral K. Achim Schollenbach was resigned because he said Russia should get respect. Putin should get respect. Well, that's the same thing as Biden saying they're going to take it over. He's got all the troops there. He's got to do something with it. It's exactly what Biden has said. So it's embarrassing to Germany. But Germany agrees with Biden. They're willing to do anything to capitulate, appeasement. The same thing that happened in 1938 with Neville Chamberlain. And all of our viewers from the United Kingdom can correct me if they think that I am wrong. Neville Chamberlain was in charge. He was prime minister. He made the agreements with Germany that allowed them to take over countries. And then we had World War II. This is no different. It's the same scenario. And we have the same problem going on right now. And it is making the world more and more difficult. You know what? Let me show you something. It's really going to upset a lot of people. This is how bad the Biden-Harris administration is when it comes to international policy. You remember when we were talking about Afghanistan, when Joe Biden abandoned somewhere between 479 and 2,000 American citizens. Right now, there are at least a couple hundred, if not a couple thousand Americans who have been abandoned since September 1st, totally discarded. They're not even spoken about. You can ask a Democrat to their face. I've asked Congressman Antonio Delgado for months in emails and in conversations on social media. I have asked him over and over again, what about the American citizens that have been discarded, thrown away by the Biden-Harris administration? Are you going to get them home? That's on top of the fact that Joe Biden lied to you, to your face. He looked in the camera and said there were 85 Americans abandoned in Afghanistan, and he lied because the real number is no less than 479 and could be in somewhere around 2,000 or more. That is a fact admitted by the Pentagon and the Department of Defense in October 27th of 2021. And I bring that up for a specific reason, because you are not being told what I'm about to show you. The major news media overall has been hiding the fact that the State Department is getting people out. They are taking people out of the Ukraine as of tomorrow. In fact, in just a few hours, because they're ahead of us in terms of time. And this is confirmed. We've seen this in several news announcements that they are getting people out of the Ukraine as soon as possible. They're telling families to get out of that nation. But the thing that I think is most important, and I want to find it, here it is. And this comes from the Voice of America. And you're not going to see this anywhere else. The Voice of America, and they're on January 21st, they were reporting this. This comes from the U.S. State Department. The spokesman for the U.S. State Department said, if U.S. diplomats and their families must be evacuated, quote, American citizens should not anticipate that there will be U.S. government-sponsored evacuations. And said, well, there's commercial flights. You can use that instead. I want you to think about that for a second. This is the State Department. This came out just before the news announcement that we are, in fact, evacuating Ukraine because we believe they're about to go into a war, because no one is listening to Joe Biden and no one is stopping. And it is in black and white. They're going to do to the Americans in the Ukraine the same thing that Joe Biden did to Americans in Afghanistan. You're on your own, screw you, and they won't talk about you ever again. They're going to just throw them away. Oh, your wife and your kids are in the Ukraine? That's fantastic. They're American citizens? Fantastic. Hope they can get a flight before the bombs stop dropping on their head. And let me ask you, where is CNN reporting that line? Where is MSNBC reporting that line? I'll say the same thing about Fox as well. Where's the rest of the This is international news. And it was buried. This one line was buried in the middle of the story. This story is 1, 2, 3. This is like a dozen paragraphs in. It's one paragraph, one sentence, and then you got the rest of it. But this is the important one. This is the important sentence in that entire paragraph. And by the way, at the end of the show, I will have links to everything that I'm showing you and we're discussing so that you can read it for yourself. And you can, this is completely in context, and I want you to be able to see it so you can see that it is in context for yourself. We know that America is, we've heard it, the State Department, people have been begging the State Department to evacuate the Ukraine. That is coming from the U.S. Embassy and diplomats in the Ukraine. They've asked for it. The State Department is saying yes. And they're saying at the same time, figure it out on your own. That is exactly what we did in Afghanistan. That is exactly how Americans died in Afghanistan. That is exactly why there are hundreds of Americans in Afghanistan to this day. And Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, the Democratic Party in Congress do not care. They could care less. They won't even mention it. CNN, MSNBC, all the international, the major news sources refuse to even acknowledge those human beings exist. And I have one thing to say to you about that. Imagine it was you. Imagine it's your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, your kids, your grandkids that are being abandoned. Imagine if the government of the United States absolutely abject refused to ever mention your name, to ever acknowledge that you exist, even though they are receiving your emails, even though the State Department, your congressman, they're getting your emails, they're getting your phone calls. They know that you are off on your own in a war zone where people are trying to kill you. Even though they know that, they refuse to tell anyone in America about it. They refuse to tell the world about you, and they just leave you there. Because that's what the Biden-Harris administration is doing right now. This is what Antony Blinken is doing when he's not in front of the TV cameras begging Russia, please, please be nice, guys. Don't invade. We will give you stuff. We will give you all kinds of stuff. Please don't invade. That's the best answer he can come up with. And in the back door, he's going around and he's telling his own people, he's telling American citizens, figure it out. Do what you got to do. Sorry, we're not going to help you. The United States, which has billions upon billions of dollars of aircrafts that are just rusting away. We've got the entire Marine Corps, we've got the Air Force, we've got bases in Germany. You mean to tell me we can't take any of the Air Force planes that we have stationed in Germany at the Army bases? We can't take one C-130 or a couple of them, fly them over to Ukraine right now, pick up the families, the women and children, the parents and grandparents, these American kids, fly a C-130 over there, pick up the kids, and take them out of that nation before bombs start dropping on their heads. You mean to tell me we can't do that? That Antony Blinken and Joe Biden are so without compassion that they would rather have the bombs drop on the kids' head and they'll just ignore that they exist whatsoever. My God help me. I think that's the most insane thing I've ever heard. And I can't believe that they did this. I am not surprised why the New York Times and CNN and MSNBC will not tell you this. And I am not surprised that the rest of the world is saying America is useless under a Biden-Harris administration, because if they're not willing to send one C-130 into the Ukraine to pick up the kids that are, and civilians, American kids that are in the Ukraine right now, and if they're not willing to do that, who do you think they're going to protect? Do you really think they're going to go to war for anybody? Do you think they're going to protect anyone? Hell, in the United States, do you think that they care about you? Biden's like, oh, I want to help you because you're poor, you're middle class. I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to unite America. If I don't forget about you, he doesn't care about children. What makes him think that he cares about you, a middle-aged American citizen in the United States who's not in danger whatsoever? He doesn't even know you exist. He knows those kids exist, and he doesn't care. If he doesn't care about a kid in a foreign nation that's about to get blown up by bombs, what makes you think he cares about you? And if there is a single Democrat, if there is a single progressive that wants to tell me how I am wrong, and they want to clarify to me that I've missed something in the news that I have been reading in Germany and in Voice of America and many other sources, if you would like to tell me that I don't understand, that I have somehow gotten this wrong, please call in 607-242-1582. Please show me the proof of Joe Biden caring about American children and restore my faith that we do not have the most miserable, insensitive, evil person in the White House right now. And I say that because anyone who would allow children to die in a war zone, telling them, figure out how you can get home on your own, that is evil. Period. Point blank. That's evil. Jason mentions Taiwan is next, or maybe the same. And I think, Jason, I think you're right. I think it's the same. I also think that YouTube, Facebook, they're playing with the signal and dropping people off. Don't worry, folks. I know you're there. You're not alone. Don't go by the numbers that are being reported by YouTube and Facebook on how many people are actually watching live. The number is always larger. We always see it afterwards. Don't think you're alone. And if you're outraged, let me know. Tell me if you think this is outrageous. Tell me if you think, does it sound like a democracy? Does it sound like America to hear that a president, that the White House, that the State Department are telling children, telling the parents, figure out how you're going to get your kids home. We won't do anything. Again, this is coming from the United States Department, State Department. This is under Antony Blinken. This is what they are telling the diplomats and the people who went overseas to work for the United States. Many of these people are career people. It's not politics. They've been serving under President Clinton. They've been under Bush, and they've been under Obama, and they've been under Trump. They've been there for decades, many of these people. This is not political. They have been there forever. They serve America. And they are being told to get their kids out however they can. Figure it out, because the United States government, with $30 trillion in debt, with $6 trillion in spending by Joe Biden in 1 year alone, with the Democratic Party, can't spare $100,000 to send one plane to fly into Ukraine and take the kids out. Talk about having the very least. That's the very least that we could do. And I think everyone in America could put together a penny. You could charge every American, 330 million Americans, charge them all 1 penny, and we'd be able to get 5 flights from Germany into the Ukraine, pick up the kids, bring them back, put them into a 5-star hotel, and we'd have money left over. This is not expensive, folks. This is not difficult to do. We literally could have the plane fly into the Ukraine, into Kiev right now, into Kiev, pick up all the kids and leave before the end of this show. We could do it all in 2 hours. It'll cost America $100,000, $200,000 on a $6 trillion deficit. We spend $6 trillion a year. You wouldn't even see. The $200,000 it would cost for this flight wouldn't even show up in the accounting. It's that small. I'm very excited about this. I'm very upset about this. Because the closer we're getting to war, the closer we're seeing the Biden administration to abandoning democracy completely and turning the United States from the superpower of the world to the super joke of the world. And in doing so, it is endangering lives overseas and at home. Because the more that we see the rest of the world fighting, the fewer people are going to be building, manufacturing the things that we need, which means everything that we want to buy is going to cost that much more. I can't make it more simple than that for people to understand. How does it affect people in the United States? If you happen to be in Wichita, if you happen to be in Dallas, if you're in Boulder, if you're somewhere in mom and pop America, in the middle of America, you're going to say, well, how does this affect me? If there is war, if there is even conflict, fewer people are making stuff, and the stuff they're making will cost more. The United States doesn't make anything. Thank President Obama. We transformed from a manufacturing economy to a service economy. And in doing that, we need everyone else to make stuff for us. So if they're busy spending all their money and their time fighting a war or sending over equipment to a country that needs a war, and we're making everything go somewhere else, the stuff they send to us is going to cost each and every American more. Therefore, and that means it will be priced out of the middle class and the poor, a lot of things. And that means people will starve in America because the cost is too much for them to afford, and they will starve. Kids will go into poverty because of this. This creates more harm than good. I hope I'm explaining this so that everyone can understand it, because I know it sounds like such a big problem and no one can figure it out. And it's such a big deal and people don't understand how it connects to you. And if your friends and your neighbors, maybe they don't want to watch this show because they're afraid to watch a black Republican. Maybe they think, oh my God, he's a conservative, so that means you're crazy. No. I'm trying to make this as simple so every American can understand this. Other places in the world have a problem, either because they make the stuff we buy, or the countries around them are they're using their supplies for that war. They're not building stuff for us anymore. So everything they do build costs more money. And that means you pay it, and that means poor people get screwed hard. And that means poor kids have less, which will eventually lead to kids and poor people in the United States, some of them, dying. And that's bad. That's why this is important. Whether or not a single U.S. soldier actually puts a foot down. And by the way, they might. Because if Russia takes over the Ukraine and Joe Biden has nothing to stop them, What's going to prevent Russia from saying, well, let me take over part of Germany too? What about my good friends over in Latvia, in Riga? Beautiful, beautiful city, beautiful country. Lived there. I was in there for a little while. When I was living out in the Soviet Union back in 91, went to Latvia. Great place. Had a great Euromala. If you ever get the chance, go there. Great resort. Beautiful, right on the Atlantic Ocean. Wonderful time. Had a great time. Euromala. And they're about to get taken over because Russia's not going to stop with just the Ukraine. Did Germany in the 1930s, did they stop when they took over Czechoslovakia? Why would they? What's the point? If no one's there, no one has the balls to stand up and stop you, you keep going until they do. And at this moment, no one's got the balls. Certainly not Biden, not Kamala. She's got someone's balls, but it ain't his. Jason mentions bullets may become more valuable, and I truly believe bullets will be more valuable for many reasons, but this is one of them. And again, bullets actually are one of the few things that America does make, and the cost of bullets will go up for American citizens because we're going to be shipping bullets over to the rest of the world. In Germany, to prepare for what Russia might do, to the Ukraine because of what Russia is doing, to people in Latvia, in Lithuania, in Poland, because they're terrified of what Russia might do next. There are people in Taiwan that need them badly. Yeah. So I do see bullets becoming more. Dow mentions Alaska. Hey Dow, what do you mean Alaska? What about Alaska? I'm not sure what you're referencing there, Dow. Hang on a second. Excuse me. Something's on my lap. So, Dow mentions ostensibly American leadership's weakness could lead to expansion to yes, the Soviet Union could try and take over Alaska. At one point, there is, I forgot the name of the strait. There's the Aleutian Strait, string of islands in Alaska. If you ever look at the map, when we see Alaska, there's all those little dots of islands that go down on the map. Those are called the Aleutians. And there's about 12 miles between the Aleutians and Russia. 12 miles. You could easily get ships to cross there and start coming into the United States. They would go into Alaska and try and take it over. It's been threatened before. It could happen very quickly. We do have a lot of people, we do have bases and early warning systems to make us aware of that. But then again, we also have the early warning systems in the Ukraine. We knew the second that Russia put the troops against the Ukrainian border, we knew about it. It's not a question of, do you know that they're coming? What do you do when they get there? Jim Jam mentions, do you think Russia will invade Ukraine in the next days? Jim, I'm talking all about that for a little while now. And yes, well, I don't know if it's the next few days, but it probably before the middle of February, most likely. The advantage is all in Russia. The sooner they act, the better. Because theoretically, if enough time takes place, theoretically, Joe Biden, Germany might figure out what they're doing. The United Kingdom, as we speak, is stepping up to the plate, and they're trying to figure out, and they're trying to take charge. Because Joe Biden has so completely failed, they're now it's, and I want to show it to you. Where is it? Where is it? The United Kingdom has just started to take over, and they're stepping there. There it is. the United Kingdom has been stepping in with both their intelligence, and they're sending out a negotiator right now to go to Russia to do what America should have been doing. They're sending their officials to negotiate with Ukraine, to negotiate with Russia, to try and stop this. And they're warning the Ukraine that not only is Russia's after the whole country. They may say that, well, they're just going to take and annex the eastern part. They're also after the whole country. They're going to put in puppet government. So whether they fight it for the whole country or if they only fight for the east, they're still after the whole country. The United Kingdom figured that out. The United Kingdom's trying to prevent that. They're doing what the United States should be doing. They're doing what the United States is failing to do. So I give much props to the United Kingdom. They recognize that the Neville Chamberlain approach, the appeasement approach that Joe Biden is using, it's a copy of the 1938 plan that happened in England. They recognize that that only leads to death and devastation and potentially world war. And to head that off, they're stepping in where the United States is afraid to tread, where Blinken and Biden have failed completely to make any headway. So I really think that, so to answer your question, Jim Jam, if the longer Russia waits, the more England might have an impact, how they may take over for the United States and actually get something done. And they may be able to rally Europe, especially since they have better relationships with Europe than Biden ever had, even before all of this. And they may actually get Europe together, and now Russia would be fighting a unified Europe instead of just Germany by itself, with America floundering somewhere in the background and no one else knowing what's going on. So I think it is more likely. You may disagree, but that's my reasoning for that. And I would say middle of February at the latest. Dow says Biden would probably just shrug and be like, quote, meh, they'll get a bunch of polar bears. It'll be fine. Time for some ice cream. I don't even know that Biden knows what's going on around him. Honestly, I don't. The man doesn't know what he's doing. No world. Even if Joe Biden doesn't care if the Ukraine gets taken over, even if Joe Biden doesn't care that Russia takes the Crimea, puts in troops in all throughout Eastern Europe, even if he doesn't care, no president would say that. No president who actually knows what they're talking about would say, yeah, it's a minor incursion. It's a minor country. It's a little piece of land relative to the world. But no one says that, because when you say that, as the president, as the leader of democracy in the world, everyone reacts to that. It means it means that, oh, well, we're not going to send over all the troops we could. It means we're not going to send over all the weapons that we could. We're not going to spend the money that we could spend to make it worthwhile, to make it difficult for Russia to move forward. And if we're not willing to do that for Russia, why are we going to do it for Taiwan versus China? Why are we going to do it in the Middle East, whether it's in Syria or whether it's in Iraq or Afghanistan? People, the Israelis, should be looking at this going, oh my God, he's going to abandon us to the entire Middle East. Joe Biden is going to abandon Israel, our only ally in the Middle East. He's already in the process of abandoning Taiwan. Our allies in Asia, which means South Korea and Japan, are freaking out as North Korea is firing hypersonic missiles at Japan. They've sent off, 4 of them in January alone. Japan is freaking out right now. South Korea is freaking out right now. And Joe Biden won't even mention their countries. He won't even mention what they're doing. And the last person they sent over there was Kamala, who was disgusted by the existence of their president in South Korea. I mean, how do you make the world worse than what I'm describing here, folks? And folks, I'm describing the news. I'm not even telling you, this isn't me interpreting. This is what happened. Jason mentions that Biden sounded like he made a deal with Russia and slipped up during the press conference. Well, like I said, we know that the Biden administration, with Blinken, State Department, told the Ukraine in December 10th of 2021, he told them to give up land and give it to Russia. We know that. That was a conversation that was going on, and that was behind the scenes, and it was hush hush. And now we have this. So yeah, I think that it was unconfirmed in December. I think that we just got the confirmation now that that's exactly what Biden. And this is why everyone in Europe thinks Biden has completely failed and he's a complete failure. They were so desperate to not have Trump because Trump was mean and loud and rude, especially compared to the sensibilities of Europeans and for many Americans as well. He's loud and rude, no doubt. And it so upset the sensibilities of some Americans and some in Europe that they begged and pleaded for Biden to be in charge. And now they're realizing that, okay, you got Biden in charge. How's that working out for you? And they're suddenly realizing they're screwed because none of this would even be thought of happening with a Trump in charge or a Ronald Reagan in charge or even a G.W. Bush in charge. Because as much as you may say, and I know some Democrats like to say, well, they're stupid, they're arrogant, they're bullies, they're cowboys, and they're effective. See, it doesn't matter if you'd have a beer with the president. See, that's the thing that Barack Obama never understood when he had his little beer summit, when he walked around like a superstar, a rock star. No one cares. That's not important. That's not what a president is. You know, a president, you don't have to like them. You can hate their guts. If they're effective, you will reelect them every day and you will sing their praises. And throughout history, they will be known for being great presidents. Not because they were really nice people. Not because they took great pictures and they were in videos and they played a saxophone. No one gives a damn. What people care about is America safer today than it was yesterday? Is the world more at peace today than it was yesterday? That's the definition of a good president. I don't care if you think they could be bigots, they can be racist, they can be loud, abrasive. We've had presidents that are all of those things. And some of them were good presidents because they were effective. And some of them were all of those things, and they were useless because they weren't effective. Guess what? We got Biden. He's useless. If there is a Democrat or a progressive watching the show and would like to tell me how I am wrong, given all the evidence I am presenting to you, I want to hear that. Please comfort me and give me some reassurance that Biden is effective. But I can tell you, the analysis coming from Europe and the rest of the world says he's not effective at all, that he is a complete screw up. And that's it. And that means we're in trouble. The world agrees with me more than American Democrats. Surprising. Dow says the president is supposed to be the guy that strides into the room and everyone goes quiet to see what happens next. Like the respected gunfighter in a saloon. You know, it's like that. Remember the TV show, The West Wing? And I think it was the third episode or second episode of the show. And you had the president walk in. What's his name? Not Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen's father. And he walks into the room and everyone stands up and gets quiet except for one person in the room. And he walks over to her because he's Martin Sheen. And Martin Sheen walks over to her and she's like, I don't stand for anyone. And he's like, and you're in my house. I'm the president. You stand when I walk in. It was a great scene. I'm describing it badly. The TV show, The West Wing. I love that show. Yes, Martin Sheen. And I thought it was really well done. And he was a very liberal, very progressive president. But I could respect a Martin Sheen. Kamala Harris, Joe Biden combined with like, if you could combine Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, throw in Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and AOC and Bernie Sanders, put them in a blender and put them out, they still wouldn't be anywhere near the type of president that an actor on TV was able to show, because they don't have gravitas, they don't seem to be intelligent, and they don't make good decisions. They're not effective. And if they're not effective, they're useless. If you're a president and you are not effective, you are useless. That is just the facts. And, you know, and that goes on without, that is indisputable. I don't care what party you're in, Republican, Democrat, if you are not effective, you are useless as a president. And let me explain, let me take a moment, folks. I want to explain something. Why is this so important? Because there are consequences to this, like Afghanistan. And I want you to understand. So just like Afghanistan, in the Ukraine, we are putting children in danger, American citizens in danger. The State Department has said that already. But you're saying to me, well, Mike, how does this make the world more in danger? Remember Afghanistan. America ran with its tail between its legs because that's what Joe Biden wanted to do, because he thought he was going to get a good photo op out of it. But when we did that, we also released around the world a bunch of ISIS people. Where is it? I want you to see, we covered the story before, but ISIS, in Afghanistan, when we lost that country, when we gave it to the Taliban released thousands, at least 7,000, I believe the number was, at least 7,000 ISIS and Al-Qaeda terrorists from prison. And these terrorists ran around the world. And we know that ISIS, since 2018, has been going around the world, and they have been trying to blow up the rest of the world. Europe, in particular, is one of their big targets. They are after the world. They have gone to Europe. They have gone to other countries, and they have been blowing stuff up. And this is because when Joe Biden handed the keys to the Taliban and walked away, he didn't think of, what are the consequences? What happens next? What happens when the Taliban opens up all the prison cells and thousands of terrorists get loose and they're out in the world? Well, what happens is what we're seeing right now. And you probably don't know this. There's a country called Burkina Faso. Nobody knows what that is. I know everyone's going right now, Burkina Faso. What's Burkina? That's a country. It's a small country. Burkina Faso is a very small country. And you can see it here. Burkina Faso is only 100,000 square miles. We're talking about something that's, size of smaller than New York State. It's got 20 million people in their country. That's the entire country, 20 million people. The same as New York State. We have more people in New York State than this country in Western Africa has. And we have that entire country, Burkina Faso, they have a GDP, $16 billion. New York State has we're about $1.7 trillion. That's the GDP of New York State, with about the same number of people as this country, Burkina Faso, in Africa. So they are tiny. They are a third world nation, and they are being invaded by ISIS. And we believe, and I strongly believe, that the ISIS members that we had in prisons in Afghanistan, when we ran away in August, when the Taliban opened up the prison cells in Afghanistan, ISIS poured out and some of them ran into Africa, and they are causing a war, a civil war in Africa. They are trying to kill people in Africa, and that is a direct result of Joe Biden and his policies and his failure in international policy. You may disagree. Please tell me how I'm wrong. I am drawing a direct line for you. This is the consequences. It's 6 months later, and we see in Afghanistan, Joe Biden gives up the country. The prisons are opened up. The crazies got loose, and they're going around the world, and global terror has increased. And this is just one example of it. You could look at Yemen. You could look in Southeast Asia. You can look around the country and the world. You will see the crazies have gotten loose. And that's because of Joe Biden. That's because of Joe Biden, the Democratic Party, and their move towards progressivism and socialism. Tell me how I'm wrong. Tell me what you think. If you think this is wrong, I'm showing you the line. I'm giving you the evidence in the news, in the world today. Tell me how I'm misunderstanding. Dow says, if things don't get corrected soon, domestically, there will be nowhere left to run. Those that can have already left to whatever haven they can find. Our government needs populist leadership. And I agree with that. But a lot of people don't realize, I'm trying to take the time today to do something that the internet overlords hate. And this is why we get suppressed so much. And I really, really find it important. And I really, really pray and thank you, folks. Please, if you have been listening and you've enjoyed it any at all, if you found this to be informative at all, please share this. Please subscribe. Please help us reach more and more people to hear more and more of the thoughts of everyone in the world. Because the only way everything gets better is if we all speak and act on these things. And I think it's important that we take stuff that's being hidden in the United States, hidden by the US media, and let the people know. Because otherwise, it's a scam. That's it, it's a scam. So please do consider that. But I really believe that there are people in our government right now, Ilhan Omar, Cori Bush, a few others, that they really want to see America fail. And they're happy for this. And they're more than happy to destroy this. The Democratic Socialists of America, especially the Ithaca chapter, which happens to believe in violence. They are another group of individuals that we have a problem with. Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow. These are all organizations that are far left and absolutely believe in violence and threats. And they want threats of violence and acts of violence. And that endangers every American. So I'm telling you about it so you understand, so that when someone tells you, nah, the world's great. When you listen to Joe Biden come out and say, everything's fantastic, everything is fun, the economy is good, your life is fine, the world is peaceful, so that you can look at it and go, you're lying. And the only reason why he says the economy is fine, you're better off, everyone's got a raise, don't talk about inflation, don't think about the 11 million people who don't have a job, the fact that we're not creating new businesses, that we're not even keeping pace with what we did in 2019, the fact that things are more expensive because we don't make anything in America anymore, and he's not helping that, and it's going to get worse if there's a war overseas. And if you think we have supply issues right now, if you think the grocery stores are empty now, wait until you see a war going on anywhere else in the world, a big war. Do you think China is actually going to keep making all that stuff in Walmart if they're fighting the United States? Do you think Russia is going to keep letting Europe get electricity if they're fighting the United States? And that means all the stuff that we get from Southeast Asia and from Europe goes away. And you don't get anything. Walmart ceases to exist as a company. And I know there's a lot of people, center left, have never considered that. And this is the first time anyone has ever told them, hey, if we have these wars, even skirmishes in these parts of the world, you won't get anything. Because they're not going to make it for you anymore. And we don't make that stuff in the United States. We don't make cell phones in the United States. You can't get a new iPhone made in the United States. Doesn't happen. And if we have even a minor war in Southeast Asia with North Korea or with China, you're not getting a cell phone. Does that get anyone on the left a little bit interested? Are you at least a little bit concerned now about why this is important? And folks, if you think I'm wrong, just let me know. Just tell me. And I wish I know at least one of the Facebook pages is suppressing this and won't let the public see it. I wonder why. But it's amazing to me. I know no one cares about Burkina Faso. No one cares about this small country in the middle of Africa. There's 34 countries in Africa, and everyone can name about, most Americans can name what, 4 of them? You'll name maybe Libya. Some people don't even know Libya is in Africa, but yeah, North Africa. Morocco. Most people don't know it's in Africa, but yeah, it is. Egypt, which a lot of people don't know that's part of Africa. Yes, they're Africans too. Yes, Egyptians are African. The Sudan, South Africa, Rwanda, Zimbabwe. These are just a couple of them. Ivory Coast. These are all part of Africa, but so is Burkina Faso. Now, to be fair and to be absolutely honest, did I know that Burkina Faso was a country and not a city this morning when I was first researching this story? And the answer is no. No, I did not. There's 140 countries in 147 countries in the world. I don't know every single one of them by name. I definitely didn't know Burkina Faso, to be honest. But that's not important. What is important is to see that there is a consequence, and that's the problem with politicians today. And I don't care if you're on the right or the left. I don't care if they're a libertarian or a conservative, especially if they're in the Green Party or the far left in Democratic Socialists of America. They don't consider the consequences of what they are doing. We've got people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez saying, spend as much money as you want. No one cares. Andrew Yang is just like, print all the money you need to print. Absolutely oblivious to what happened to South America throughout the entire 1980s, what happened in the Weimar Republic with Germany that led to World War II, that they have no concept of what they're talking about and how it impacts the economies of the world. We've got these people, again, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who have literally told us that they will lie to our faces, that they don't care about facts, they don't care about the math, they don't care about being correct. They just want to be in power. How she still exists in power, I don't know. She literally has told everyone she will lie to you because she wants to be in power. Why in the hell would we want a politician that is willing to lie, to get the facts wrong? Why would we have them? Only in the Democratic Party is that possible. Only as part of the progressive movement is that possible. Because progressives are more concerned with feeling good than actually doing good. And that's why they don't care about the consequences of what they do. And we have a news media that isn't paying attention and saying, Afghanistan, we abandoned American citizens. So the president, Joe Biden, lied. So he's untrustworthy. And the world knows it. And because he gave up on Afghanistan the way he gave it up to terrorists, has increased the global terror in the world. And we're seeing countries like Burkina Faso, where that global terror is endangering people's lives and destabilizing the world and making it worse. And the rest of the world is watching it going, wow, Biden, you did that. You screwed that up. You really screwed it up. And where next? Europe is getting more terrorist attacks between ISIS and Al-Qaeda and Iran. They're all getting more attacks. Israel's going to be attacked. You know that. They've already been attacked. They're going to get attacked again. We're seeing it in Southeast Asia. We're seeing that in Yemen. This is all because of what Biden did. The way he did it. Even if you agree, it's the way he did it. We have generals like General Milley that are like covering for him, saying, progressives are great. Let me go warn the bad guys that we're going to do something so that the bad guys can kill Americans better. Let me catch up on the comments. By the way, anyone can comment. You think I'm wrong? You think I got it completely wrong? You can call in. You can send me a text. It's perfectly fine. I will not beat up on you. I will not attack you. If you disagree, I will only ask you why. I will only ask you to tell me and explain why. What is it I'm misunderstanding? We don't beat up on people when they just explain themselves and tell us why they think the way they do. If you try and attack me, though, if you go, well, you're just ugly, you're just evil, you're just a Republican, that's not an answer. You attack my character, I'm going to defend myself. You won't like what happens. But if you honestly don't agree with my conclusions, speak up. I'm a human being. I can get the facts wrong. Maybe I missed a news story somewhere and I missed something. I don't think I have. And I think I've been looking at 22 different news sources around the world, and I seem to be catching stuff that the American news media finds out about 3, 4, 5 days afterwards. How many times on this show, and I'm going to get to the comments in a second, guys, but you'd be amazed, and ask anyone who watches this show on a regular basis, you'd be surprised how many times 3, 4, 5 days after we've talked about something on this program, the major news media goes, hey, guess what? There's a problem. Here's this thing. Well, yeah, we knew about it days ago. But I'm just saying. So let me get back to the comments here. Jason mentions that people will only take notice after terrorists have launched and the terror is already happening. And that you don't, and according to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, like I mentioned, you don't have to be true. You don't have to be factual. You only have to be morally right. And by the way, if you doubt that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said that, if you doubt that the progressives believe this, 60 Minutes, look it up, the interview with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, there's a whole, I think she went through 4 minutes of conversation, making sure she made it very detailed and she explained it perfectly that she doesn't care about facts. She will lie to you to maintain power. You can see it for yourself. And again, that was on 60 Minutes. Look it up. Dow mentions the Congo, Nambia, Angola, Lesotho, Somalia, lots of countries, all stricken by societal ill that could be corrected by the greatest export that America has ever produced, freedom. And I know, Dow, that you're familiar with South Africa, Africa itself. And yes, those are several other countries that I didn't even mention. And I know most people don't know any of these countries' names, but they matter. I mean, think about it. In the United States, Somalia is a small country. And yet we sent American troops there. We had American troops die there. Black Hawk Down isn't just a movie. It's a portrayal of what actually happened. American lives were endangered and killed. Women were raped. It was a bad situation. We're talking about American soldiers. And that's a small little tiny country. We probably spent, I don't know, $100 billion over there. That's a lot of money. $100 billion? Do you know how many people could be taken out of people who are now about to be evicted? You know how many people could be saved from eviction with $100 billion? Do you know how many kids could be fed with $100 billion in the United States alone? $100 billion is a lot of money. And we spent that in Somalia. Little countries matter, even countries you don't know. And think of how many countries, we had all the countries that were helping the warlords in Somalia, and they were doing it just because they don't like America. Imagine what happens when a big country like Russia or Iran or North Korea or China decide that they want to pick on America because we have a weak leader, because we have no plan, because we don't understand consequences. And what happens when one of those big guys comes after us and all those little countries that have whatever issues they have decide to jump on in there too? What happens when maybe it's, I don't know, a Russian national, maybe a communist from China decides to go through our southern border because Kamala Harris hasn't been there, doesn't do anything about it, even though she's in charge of it, crosses the southern border with 1.5, maybe 2 million other illegal aliens, comes into our nation and then hurts other American citizens. All because we didn't think of the consequences of what we're doing. That's the reality. That's what we're really looking at right now. This is a big deal. Dow mentions a product that needs to be, freedom is a product that needs to be reintroduced into our own lives, even here. I agree with you completely. And that's why I was saying at the very beginning of the show that it's important for you to know. The major news media isn't covering the fact that there are protests right now where Americans are saying their health, their individual freedom is more important than a government mandate from a government that doesn't care about individuals. I hope I have made that clear. And that the mandates aren't just an isolated thing. It's not just one or two crazy people. There's 20,000 people peacefully at Washington, D.C. right now, at the Lincoln Memorial, and they're protesting right now, and there's no problem. I can tell you for a fact that in the Southern Tier, hundreds of people came together to say that they were against the vaccine mandates. Doctors, nurses, healthcare workers. These are intelligent people. They had many reasons for not wanting to do this, from the political, saying that they don't agree with the overreach of the government, to the medical, like the Hippocratic Oath. And, you know, I'm not a doctor. I'm not telling you what to do for your healthcare. You go talk to a doctor for your decision. You figure it out for yourself and with your doctor. But I can tell you that if you are against the mandates, you're not alone. There are thousands. There are literally rallies of 250,000 people in France, 250,000 people in Australia and in Italy that are protesting the mandates every day. In Arizona right now, there are, any given day, I have several friends in Arizona. I have several people, and I follow Arizona, some of the news there. There are vaccine protests in Arizona every other day that have at least 500 people at each and every protest throughout the state of Arizona. And in New York State, they're like, oh my God, no one's protesting. No one would ever protest. Why would anyone protest the government mandating your life? And if the government can mandate what medications are going to be put into your body, when the government has more control over your body than you do, what else will that government do? Or put another way, what won't that government do? That's why we think it's important to tell you. And when I say that everything is screwed up and the supply lines, these problems are coming back to hurt America, let me also remind you something else that isn't big news in the media. DC, Homeland Security, they are restricting what people can buy. They're doing it by suggestion at the moment. But remember, the vaccine, there weren't mandates always. The vaccines initially started off as a suggestion, and then they became mandates. And right now we have the Homeland Security and Energy Management. The government is now saying, in DC, they're telling people they're restricting what you can buy. We're not at war. This isn't like World War II, where people couldn't buy stuff because we were fighting a war and we didn't have all the extra materials. We had to put stuff to fight against the 1940s Germany. No, we're seeing them say the answer to the failure of the Biden administration is, oh, well, then just don't buy anything. We're restricting what you can buy. It's already started. You're being rationed. And if it starts with this, mandates, that's how the mandates started. They suggested it first. Then it became required. I've been alive for 53 years, almost 54 years at this point. I have never lived a time in my life in America where I have ever heard about Americans being forced to ration outside of the Great Depression and World War II. And those were the most extreme situations we have ever seen in the world. That wasn't just an American problem. That was a world, that was global problems. Everyone had it. And now, for the first time in my lifetime, in the 21st century, I am listening to the government without a global depression, not a recession, a global depression, not without a world war. I have the American government and cities and states that are saying, we would prefer you not to buy an extra bar of soap. We really want you to only get one loaf of bread. We really don't think that you should buy an extra, an extra pound of hamburger meat. Can you imagine that? This is the consequences that you are getting, folks. This is what happens when you allow mandates, when you don't think, and when you don't think about the consequences, and when we have elected officials that we are just re-electing for decades upon decades and not considering, are they effective at all? Do they deserve to be in this? It's not enough to say, I don't like X. The other choice has to be good too. And if they're not, get someone who is. I don't agree with Nancy Pelosi. That doesn't mean you have to vote Republican. Maybe that means Democrats in California, go on out, go to your party, find a Democrat who is a better Democrat, have them go in a primary with Nancy Pelosi and pick the better Democrat and let them go to office rather than just re-electing Nancy Pelosi over and over again. Doesn't mean you have to be a Republican. Would I prefer it? Absolutely, because I'm a Republican. I'm conservative. But that doesn't mean you have to do that. Go to your own party and pick the best person in your party. I guarantee you there are better people than Nancy Pelosi, than Maxine Waters, than Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Cori Bush, Ilhan Omar. I guarantee you there are better Democrats that are available in those communities for the Democrats. Have them run and elect them. Don't just keep going because you heard, well, I've heard of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Yeah, you've heard she's a moron. I've heard of Cori Bush. Yes, because she's a racist. So is Ilhan Omar. And Nancy Pelosi, thank God that woman's about to retire because she doesn't even know what she's saying. She hasn't known what she's been saying for a decade. And if you think I'm wrong, we can go back. I have plenty of video from ABC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC. I can go to the major news media. I can show you all kinds of quotes. That woman has no idea what she's saying sometimes. I don't know if it's because she drinks too much or whether she's just old. Or she's just stupid. She doesn't, and I don't think she's stupid. I honestly don't. I think maybe old age, maybe because she's drinking, but I guarantee you, she doesn't know what she's saying sometimes. And Democrats can do better within their own party. Should you vote for a Republican? I would like it. You don't have to. Should you vote Libertarian? Hey, I have some great Libertarian friends. I want people to, I like Larry Sharpe. I hope Larry gets a bunch of votes. I'd love to see Larry get 10% of the vote in New York State. God help me if he actually wins. That would be absolutely interesting. Is it because I hate Democrats? No, I know Larry. Larry Sharpe is a friend. He's a decent guy. I think he has some good ideas. Some ideas I absolutely disagree with, and I think he's out of his mind. And I have told him that to his face on his show, and I will do it again. But I think overall, he's a good guy. I definitely think he's still better than appointed Governor Kathy Hochul, who's trying to become the new Empress of New York. I'm telling you, she's bad news, folks. She's bad news. There's a reason why she ran with Andrew Cuomo. She's bad news. She's bad goods, spoiled goods. But I don't think that having someone like Eric Adams in New York City is improving the situation. Seriously, progressivism isn't productive. I know Eric Adams said that he is. He says that it's a good thing. He's out of his mind. And that's why New York City is going berserk already. Doesn't take a lot of time for the consequences to catch up to some of these politicians. Let me stop for a second and mention something. Because a lot of people say, well, Mike, then what do I do? What do I do? How do we fix this? How can I make this better? You're telling me about how bad this is. You're telling me how they're going out there, they're going to start rationing food and there's consequences. And Europe thinks that America's absolute trash and falling apart. What can I do about that? I'll tell you. And I just said it. But let me put it directly to you. The answer is vote. You get out and you vote, not just on the presidential election. Sorry, that's not the most important one, and it's only once every 4 years. Do you only work one day? Do you work only 1 year out of every 4 years? I wish we could do that. That's not the case. You work every day. Guess what? You got to vote in every election. You got to vote in every election, and you have to be involved in picking and having the selection in your primaries of who is running. It's not enough to just say, well, I know that name. I saw their commercial. It's a really good commercial. Please don't vote that way. It's the reason why it costs $14 million to run for Congress right now. And guess what? Do you like Congress? It sucks. I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican. Congress sucks right now. Really does. Because it's unaccountable. And it's mostly because it costs $14 million in general to get in. I know there's always the odd case like the guy in New Jersey who spent, $50 and won an election. That's just crazy. And I wish that happened more often. It shouldn't cost $14 million to run for Congress. And in that, and they spend $14 million, let me ask you something. No matter where in the United States you are, what's the name of your congressman? And if you can name that, What's the name of the congressman in the district next to yours? Not just your congressman. What's the name of the congressman in the district next to yours? And I can tell you, almost everywhere in America, people can't answer that question. And that's the problem. I would be willing to bet if someone did a study on this, and I know they've done similar studies, over 65% of Americans wouldn't be able to name the congressman in the district next to their own district. And I'd say 30 to 40% of people in their own district don't know their own congressman. And that's the problem. And you fix that problem by voting, by being involved and voting for someone who is good, not just better than that guy, not the best of evils, but picking the right person, picking a good candidate. And if you have no good candidates, vote Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, Deadpool, pick a name in the world. I don't know, Horatio Hornblower, Darth Vader. It doesn't matter. You have the right to write in any name you want. Do that. If you have no good choices, put in Darth Vader so that everyone gets to see this is how bad those guys are, that I would rather have Golem from the Lord of the Rings than either of these two horrible candidates that these parties have put up, or even in the primary, and pick someone better. We could do it, folks. We can do it, and we can make America so much better than it is right now, because we can't really get too much worse than Biden, who's a zombie. He's a zombie president. I swear to God he is. Dow mentions that the civic duty aspect of being people's representative for the state and national stages has been corrupted. For years, I've advocated for term limits, removal of salaries, and return to stipends. Well, I absolutely agree on the term limits. And I have said that on this show always. And that's every single elected office. I don't care what you're running for. Nobody deserves more than 6 years. Period. End of the, I don't care what you're running for. You can never be in office for more than 6 years. Period. You can go from being a legislator to a congressman. You can go from being a city council member to being in Senate. I don't care. You can go all the way through the gambit. You can run for president. I don't care. But once you're in, nobody gets more than 6 years in whatever position you are in. If you are mayor, you get to be mayor for 6 years. Then you get a new job. That means you run for another office, then you do that. But you don't get to stay as mayor. Period. I don't care what party you're in. I don't care what you believe. You don't get to stay. You got to go on. Somebody else gets to take that job. Someone else gets to move it forward. Whether it's in your party or someone else's, I don't care. We really need that. We really need that. And I don't care about, I'm a Republican, I'm conservative, and I want term limits. And I know lots of Democrats who are moderates, they want term limits. I know lots of people who want term limits. And we don't need the law. You just need to vote. Term limits is as simple as people get up off their butts and vote in every election. If they won't make it a law in Congress, vote. It's a law by action. De facto, when you vote, you made it a law. It's a fact because you're voting. You don't need Congress to do that. You have the power. Always have, always will. That's why the United States is great. That's what separates us from every other nation in the world. And that's why democracy is so important in this nation, because we can do that any time, any election. We can change everything in this nation, which is why it's such a failure to see Joe Biden, who is out there and he is suggesting, as is being reported by Germany, that he thinks that we're failing, that he is given up on democracy and is looking forward to having an autocracy, a dictatorship And the Germans see it, and they're talking about it. And I know if the Germans are talking about this, this is being spoken about by the British and the French and the Australians and the Canadians. And God knows it's being said by the Australians and the New Zealanders, the Kiwis. And I know I said the Australians twice. I said it on purpose because they are absolutely ballistic and crazy. Look at what they're doing to their own people right now. Yes, I'm talking about the Australians. You want to see the next nation that's going to become a dictatorship? Look at Australia. I truly believe it. And if the Aussies who watch this program disagree with me, I know you can't call because, well, one time zone, two cost of money. No problem. Send me a text. Even after the show, put in a comment and tell me why I'm wrong, why Australia won't become the next dictatorship in the world, the next autocracy in the world out of the major nations in the world. But I'm telling you, that's going to be it. Dow mentions it used to be that your representative had their own business to run outside of office. So the stipend was determined to be a certain percentage of their yearly income to cover the cost of living in the capital or state capital. Yeah, but then there's a question of kind of like there is right now, where they're able to make investments. The Congress is able to make investments with prior knowledge, and so they're able to manipulate the markets. It's not something I'm saying no to. I don't know a lot about the stipends. And depending, what we need to do is just pay attention to the law. If we write a good law and we pay attention to the details and we consider the consequences, sure. But let's stop just doing stuff because we're just doing stuff and let's see what happens. Let's run a social experiment. You know, the American people are guinea pigs. That's what democracy means. I'm Joe Biden. I'm Joe Biden and I'm going to run an experiment. I'm the Democratic Party. I'm going to run an experiment. I'm the Progressive Party of America, the Democratic Socialist. Let's run an experiment on New York City or New York State or California. Let's see this happens. Let's see what happens. Costing people their lives, their livelihoods, their futures, just destroying people left and right. I'm sorry, I'm tired of that. And I will speak out against it. I'll give you a great example, folks. You probably didn't see this. Came out of Florida. There was, and this is a little tricky. So in Florida, there was a lawsuit about free speech, which we believe in. On this channel, we are near absolute in our belief of free speech. I don't believe in hate speech. I don't think that exists. I don't believe in censoring anything like Canada, the C-16, like many other countries where you can't say certain words, like the United Kingdom. There's a lot of words you can't say, and you will be arrested if you say certain words. So I don't believe in that. And in Florida, this is free speech. So there was this argument that there were a bunch of, the University of Florida is a state university. So your taxes in Florida go to pay for that university. Fair enough. And a couple of the professors at the University of Florida were being asked to give their official opinion about some of the laws. They were anti-Trump. And so they were asked to be anti-Trumpers. They were asked to go out and be pro-Biden, pro-Democratic Party in these speeches that they were making. And the University of Florida said, you can't do that. So they got sued. And the judge, in looking over that lawsuit, agreed in part and with the university and in part with the professors. It's a big case. There's a lot of stuff in it. The part that's really important, though, now this is what I want you to, and again, it's part of the story. It's not, they put this in here and didn't think anyone would pay attention. Here's the most important thing in this whole story. And this is coming from Judge Walker. What's his name? Chief U.S. District Judge Mark Walker. 74 pages in his report, and what Judge Walker said that I think is very important. Here he goes. People say that China couldn't happen here. The University of Florida, I'm quoting him now, the University of Florida has bowed to perceived pressures from Florida's political leaders and has sanctioned their Nope, that's not the quote I was looking for. Where is it? Where is it? I lost my own quote. Where is it? He said something about, there's a quote from the judge, and he described the university professors as priests. There it is. Here it is. Here it is. Here it is. Here it is. Judge Walker. Judge Walker said, quote, "Here, fortunately, democracy does not depend upon a lone child to challenge the emperors of our time. Instead, our nation, America's priests of democracy, its learned professors, guide us in our pursuits of truth and informed citizenship." There, you want to see what's wrong with America and why we're falling apart, why the next generation is in so much trouble, why I'm so involved in talking about the consequences of things. It's right here. This is the line. That he thinks of our future. He thinks of education and the progressive ideology as a religion. And it is a religion you must be involved in. Government is religion. And this judge is saying that the priests of this religion that is being shoved down the throats of our next generations, of our kids in high school and in universities, are professors at the colleges, that they are the equivalent of a priest, and that they are teaching the word of government to our kids. Are you terrified by that? Doesn't matter if you're religious or not. You can be a complete atheist, and you should be terrified by this statement that a judge is looking at our government and he is saying that he's looking at our university professors, and he's very emphatic about trying to protect them because he thinks they are a priest, and that our government, the American government, not the party, not the Republicans and Democrats and libertarians and conservatives, not the parties, that the government itself is a religion, and that religion revolves around professors at colleges keeping the faithful in line, growing the faith of government through universities. That should terrify everyone. That is wrong. That is poisonous to actual democracy. That is poison. And that is the worst reason for anything I can possibly think of. To compare professors and teachers as priests, as religious figures above and separate of human beings, and that our government is so far removed from human beings and daily life that it is on a mythic, omnipresent, omnipowerful, and omnipotent position over our lives. Because that's what religion, that's what God is. I don't care if you think of if you're Jewish or you're Christian, if you're Muslim, God is, even if you're thinking Asian and you're thinking about, say, like Taoism or Buddhism, The Buddha is, all of them are embodiments of an all-encompassing, omnipotent, powerful, all-powerful God. That's what religion these days, that's all the major religions, they have this figure that is held above all others. And the priests of various religions, whether it's a monk or a priest or a rabbi, are there to connect the average person to that God figure, and they're the one that bridged that gap. And this judge of the United States, helping to define what laws guide and impact our lives, is telling us that the government is God and that you are the lowly peasant peon, and that it is teachers that are the rabbis, that are the priests, that are the monks, that they are the imams. They are there to bridge that gap from the all-powerful government and your lowly, wretched life. You should be angry. And again, it's a sentence and a paragraph and a conversation that no one paid attention to. Every other news media agency is going to blow right past that, and they're not going to pay attention to a single word of it. And you're going to see every law professor is going to ignore that. You should never be able to confuse or conflate a priest with a teacher, nor should you ever conflate the government with God. Not the same thing, not even close to the same thing, not even close in the capabilities, desires. There is nothing godlike about any government on the face of the earth, let alone the United States government. And I love America. I do not love the American government. I do not like the way that they do things. But that doesn't matter, because there is no government that I would in any way compare to God. Because there is no comparison whatsoever, ever, at any point, period. Now, if you think I am absolutely wrong on that, I am more than happy to hear the person explain to me how teachers are the equivalent of priests, which would make government the equivalent of God. And you, of course, are a peasant peon. You don't count. I really want to hear someone explain that to me. Law professor, a teacher of English, a teacher in mathematics, I don't care. Let's have that discussion, please. Dal mentions that, and I did see your comments, folks. I was just in the middle of a rant there. So Dal mentions that the Australian government seems to be pining for the position of warden to reconnect with their roots, lording over inmates that didn't necessarily commit any crime. Australia has all kinds of problems. They have so many problems going on right now. Jason mentions that the anti-government of the 60s are the government of today. Yes, they are. More importantly, the anti-government hippies of the 60s were communists. They were pro-communism. They were communists. And they just put a party frill around the communism. And so those same communists are the ones who are in charge today. That's your Nancy Pelosi's, that's your Chuck Schumer's, that's your Bernie Sanders. To varying degrees, they were all the hippies of the 60s. They were the ones who are moving in the progressivism then, and they're still in charge today. And that's the problem. God knows with people, this is why we have judges who are telling us that teachers are the equivalent of a priest and government is the equivalent of God. Oh, that's so wrong. That's so wrong on so many levels. And I'm being fair here, folks. Again, I'm not about to attack anyone. If you disagree with me, call in 607-242-1582. If you think I don't understand that correctly, if I'm misunderstanding the statement or the context, if you think that teachers are equivalent to priests, that government is equivalent to God, and everyone else is just a lowly peon. If that's what you believe, I want to hear it. Tell me why. I will not pick on you. I will not insult you. Yes, I'm a passionate person, but I am respectful. I will have that conversation, and I will not hold it against you. I just want to understand. Because obviously, one, there are people in our government that already think this, and two, there must be other people besides the people in government that already think this, that are teaching this and saying, well, that's the right idea. Please explain it to me. This is going on in your America, folks. And if you don't want to speak up to me, that's fantastic, but you better speak up to someone, because this is affecting you. This is the government and the world we live in. And you may think, Mike just doesn't know. It's still happening, folks. It's still going to affect you. Whether it's in the Ukraine or whether it's in Florida or if it's in New York State or California, these things are happening. They are affecting you. And they may not affect you right this second, but in a week, in a month, in a year, yeah, it's affecting you. So speak up now, folks. Speak up. Whether that means going to an anti-vaccine mandate or rather a vaccine mandate protest, or whether it's speaking on this channel or writing a letter to your congressman, do something, folks. In particular, while you're doing whatever it is, please like and share, and most of all, subscribe. Help us reach our goal of 1,234 subscribers. It's not a big, not some big, huge, immeasurable thing. This is all free content, costs you nothing. I do this every week, every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. And I go throughout the week and we do shows. And we should have some politicians coming on shortly. Please subscribe. If you've gone this long, subscribe. Costs you nothing. And it does help us so much. You can't possibly imagine how much it helps. Not because of money, because I lose money every year doing this. I've been doing it for 15 years. It helps us to reach more people, to hear their voices. Because that's how we really make change happen. All right, so, and if anyone wants to call in, by the way, you don't have to, these aren't the only things we can talk about today. If there's something that's on your mind as you're watching the show and you say, I wish he would just talk about this, call me up. Call into the show and tell me what it is you're thinking of. Or send me a text. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. I know the internet overlords are messing with the system right now, and so you may not be able to get through on Facebook, but try YouTube or Twitter. Send me your text. Send me your chat. Tell me what's on your mind. If you think I misunderstood or I don't understand or I've got the wrong conclusion, tell me why. I'm happy to hear your thoughts. I'm not perfect. I'm not God. I'm not a Democrat. I'm definitely not a progressive. I don't demand that you have to agree with everything I say just because I'm black, which I think is the most stupid, racist thing you could possibly say to someone. Someone tells you that whatever you say is right or wrong because based on the color of your skin, they are a racist and they don't know what they're talking about. Period. There's like this one hair that is just bugging me today. Should have shaved or something, but got this one that's just bugging my nose right now. It's crazy. It's driving me nuts. Dow says, I haven't heard much from Albany lately, and that makes me suspicious. Albany is getting ready to release, like many states, they're going to be putting out the redistricting, which is going to change the political landscape dramatically. They know that that's going to affect a lot of people and it's going to piss off a lot of people. It's going to be very bad for Republicans. So Albany is being relatively quiet because they have to get the redistricting out and then they have to also get their budget out and they have to get an all-Democrat assembly, an all-Democrat Senate guaranteed in the 2022 midterms. So it's a very careful balancing act. They got to put all the news out and piss off people very slowly and very quietly so that they can maintain power, so that they can then in 2023 completely screw us all over again like they like to do, that they have been doing. So that's why you're not hearing a lot out of Albany, because they're waiting for the next shoe to drop, which is redistricting, so that people can freak out about that. And as they're freaking out about that, they're going to drop the budget in detail and really talk about it. Because I know we got the appointed Governor Hochul's guesstimate on it, and she has no idea what she's doing. She's as bad as disgraced former Governor Andrew Cuomo. And then they're going to come out with their ads. All of the assembly members and the members of the New York State Senate are going to come out. They're going to say, oh, vote for me because I'm a genius and I'm a Democrat and you're in New York State. So that's all you do. You don't have a choice. New York State votes blue because New York State is Democrats and you don't matter. So just vote Democrat, shut up and go away. That's what they're going to, and that's basically what every commercial you're going to see coming out is either going to be New York State, we're Democrats, so you have to vote Democrats. Thank you for reelecting me. Or the other ad you're going to see is New York State doesn't have to be Democrat. Please vote for me. I beg you. Maybe I'll get elected. Won't be able to do anything anyway. And that's it. That's New York State. That's New York State in a nutshell, which is why New York State is losing about 300,000 people per year for the last decade, if not more. Why people are running away from the state as fast as they possibly can. Why we're losing power in Congress because we're losing members of Congress. It's why we're in massive, stupid amounts of debt and everything is falling apart. Dow says, yes, the deep theft taxation for the bankrupt state budget. Yeah, that's exactly it. State budget is horrible. It is absolutely miserable. It's because, again, we have politicians. Ask any of them what happens next on any bill. Great example. I was talking to Donna Lapardo a couple of years ago, 2018, about the red flag laws, which she voted for. And she admitted it was a flawed, horrible law. This is a fact. We had an interview. I published the interview. It was very friendly. I know Donna for Assemblywoman Lupardo. I've known her for years. She came in. She knew I didn't agree with her. We had the conversation. I asked her, why did she vote for this? She agreed it's a flawed law. It's not a good law. And she voted for it. And I said, why in the world would you vote for something? You're sitting here, right here with me. I'm recording this. You know it. It's an interview. Can you tell me, why would you vote for something you know is a bad law? And her answer was, well, because maybe we can fix it. I voted for it in the assembly, so that means we should be able to fix the problems in the state Senate. The state Senate took the bill and just blank checked, yep, got rubber stamp, passed it on, and did not change a single word of the bad law that Donna Lapardo voted for. That is a fact. It's not an opinion. It's not a guesstimate, nor is it an attack on Donna Lapardo. But the thing she hoped for, which was a discussion in a Democratic-controlled state government, where the Assembly and the state Senate are controlled by nothing but Democrats with a Democrat governor, there is no discussion on bad laws. It just gets straight through the line, passed, signed, done. And now New York State has a terrible red flag law in place. And here's the thing that I ask. what did they think would happen? And I think almost every politician who voted for it would probably tell you, well, it will reduce the number of suicides and it would reduce the number of crimes in New York State. And it's done none of that. Nor was it designed to do any of that. Red flag laws are a punishment for people exercising their Second Amendment rights. That is a fact. That is documented. That is what the numbers show. It does not prevent suicide. It does not protect the public. It's not designed to do that. That's not what it does. It's there to punish you without you ever breaking a law for the crime of daring to have the Second Amendment and to own a firearm. That's what the red flags do. And they will tell you, they will say, well, we hope that it would work. So it's a social experiment based, and they're risking your life and your taxes, the money you're paying, to say, let's give it a go. Let's see if this works. And it doesn't. And then they're just like, oh, well, so, oops, sorry. Sucks for you. Vote for me next time. I'll get it right the next time. Please vote for me. And they get reelected. I don't understand it. Yeah, Dow mentions pass it on. You have to pass it to know what's in it. From Nancy Pelosi. Yet another reason why I say she's out of her mind insane. It's sort of like asking for forgiveness rather than for gaining permission. Which is one thing if you're an individual. It's an entirely different thing if you happen to be a government. Doesn't work like that as a government. Which is why I'm so upset by it. And you know, and this is why it's important, it's so important every year. Because, as an example, the Democrats, and mind you, there are plenty of problems with Republicans too, and libertarians and conservatives. I know them all. I know all the different. I know people in all the parties. I know candidates of every party in many different states. And I can tell you that they're all human beings and they're all screwed up just like everyone else is. And none of them are geniuses. There isn't an Einstein walking around among them all. I know that. I've known them for decades. None of them are Einsteins, nor do I expect them to be. But they're running around just like everyone else, screwing up like everyone else. And when you see, and this is how bad it is. See, this is the other problem. Let's say that you have a politician who actually does the right thing, which is not what their party wants, but they do the right thing for the public. They do the right thing for their people. That's when you get something like this.
His recent decision blocked the Biden administration's voting rights legislation from passing. In a statement, Sinema's office says, quote, during 3 terms in the U.S. House and now in the Senate, Kirsten has always promised Arizonans she would be an independent voice for the state, not for either political party. She's delivered for Arizonans and has always been honest about where she stands.
And why did they have to do that?
Quote, during 3 terms in the U.S. House and now in the Senate, Kirsten has always promised Arizonans she would be an independent voice for the state, not...
An independent voice. You know, that's the thing that Bernie Sanders likes to say that he is. And here's the thing about this. Sinema is being censured. She's being censured. Do I have it here? I thought I have it. Right now, there is a censure. The people of Arizona, the Arizona Democratic Party, has decided to censure Sinema, Senator Kirsten Sinema, because she dared to be independent, like she promised. She dared to not obey the Democratic Party. And when she saw a bill like Joe Manchin that wasn't good for the people in Arizona, like Joe Manchin did, then she said, no, write a better law, make a better decision. be better. This isn't an experiment. This isn't a try. She was elected to protect the best interests of the people she represents. And rather than just running around going, well, Democrats said that, rather than being Kirsten Gillibrand and just being a yes woman with absolutely no power and no interest and just making $175,000 a year for just saying, yeah, Democrats said it, do it. She's being punished. She got censured. Now, let me help everyone, and we like to do this on the show. Let me explain something. What does it mean she got censured? Let me ask this, okay? No one ever says this. You hear these terms sometimes in politics. And people say, well, this person got censured. So they may get, the president might get censored. This senator is going to get, we should censor them. We're going to censor Kirsten Gillibrand. Kirsten Sinema. She got censored by Democrats for daring to not be just another yes woman, for not actually just blank check, rubber stamp saying yes in Arizona. That's why the Arizona people like her. A lot of Republicans and Democrats both like Kirsten Sinema. She's got her issues, but they like her. But she got censored. And you have to say, well, what does censure mean? Censure, a formal public group condemnation of an individual, often a group member, whose actions run counter to the group's acceptable standards for individual behavior. She did something the Democratic Party doesn't like. She didn't do as she was told. This is coming from the party that says that they represent minorities and women, that they stand up for the small guy, that they're there to protect women, blacks, Hispanics, trans, gay, all of the whole boat. Whatever micro category that you happen to wind up being in, as long as not straight, white, and male, that's what the Democratic Party represents, even though the Democratic Party is almost entirely white, straight, and male. That being said, this is what they say. This is the Democratic Party. They're there for all the disenfranchised people. And when one of those disenfranchised groups, a woman, says, hey, this isn't good for my people, they say, screw you, do what we say anyway. You don't get a voice. You don't matter. You don't count. The people you represent don't matter. They don't count. They just said, the Democratic Party of Arizona has just said that they don't care about half of their state. Millions of people do not matter. What's in their best interest does not matter. The Democratic Party of Arizona has said the party is more important than the individual, and you have to do what we say. Obey. And if you don't, we're going to censor you. Now, mind you, censure doesn't really do anything. It doesn't stop her from going and voting in the Senate. It doesn't stop her from putting in bills in the Senate. What it does do is make it very hard for Kirsten Sinema to get reelected. That $14 million that it costs to run for an elected office, they're going to stop giving her money. They're going to try and make sure that no one says Kirsten Sinema is a good person. They're not going to put out all those feel-good ads that you're going to see from the entire summer until November. They're not going to pay for any of that. They're going to make it hard for her to get reelected so that they can put in someone else who will be a yes woman, someone who will be more of a Kirsten Gillibrand than a Kirsten Sinema. Someone who's going to put the party above you, the individual. This is not to say that I think Kirsten Sinema is a great person. It's not to say that Joe Manchin is some kind of super genius. I'm not saying that. They got problems. I don't agree with them on a lot of issues, but I agree with them more than I do the Democratic Party, and in particular, the progressive movement. But I want you to think about this, because this is what is being said to you. The Democratic Party censured Kyrsten Sinema for not obeying. This is the party of women. This is the party that self-proposes and describes itself as the party of minorities, and they are punishing their party members for not obeying. When that party member has stood up for months and has said for months that I need to protect the people, this isn't good enough. There is a problem here, and you are covering it up. You're ignoring it. And they're saying, it doesn't matter. Obey. You're not there for the people, you're there for the party. And that should make everyone, not just people in Arizona, it should be everyone in America should say, something is wrong with that. There should be no party, and I'll say the same thing for Republicans and Libertarians. I'll say it for every party. They should all say, something is wrong. No one should be censured for doing the best thing they can for the people that they represent. That's the obligation that they have. That's why they swear an oath when they get in Congress to protect and take care of the people. They are obligated by law to act in the best interest and to follow and represent the people who elected them. That doesn't mean to do what the party says. That doesn't mean to be a rubber stamp for the political party. That's what you get in Russia. That's what you get in China. That's what you get in North Korea. That's what you get in Cuba. That's what you get in Venezuela. Did you hear a good country in there? Not one of them are free countries that I've just mentioned, but every single one of them does rubber stamps. There was a priest back in 2010, Alexei Karzov, who's in the Southern Tier. And he talks about a story of when he was in Russia. And I remember this. It was really interesting. Because the story, matter of fact, I'm going to try and find it so you can see what the story is. And I'll show you what that means for rubber stamps. And bear with me 1 second here. There. No, let's do it this way. I'm going to try and find it for you. Is it Father Alexei? Father priest. It was back in 2010. God, it was a long time ago. So it's going to, of course, because I'm looking for it, it's not going to find it. Ah, here it is. I found it. So, this is Father Alexei Kargut, and he was speaking in 2010.
Communist, atheistic state. And growing up in there, I have experienced quite a lot for my first half of my life. And I want to share something with you today. When I reached the mature age of 16, that was about 10 years ago, as every citizen of the Soviet Union, you were given the right to vote. And the government knows every citizen is recorded in books somewhere. So the card arrives by mail to vote for the presiding chairman of the Communist Party. His name at the time was Brezhnev. And there are two boxes to check to vote for, and two names is given. One is Leonid Brezhnev, and one is George Ivanov. and nobody was at home. Everybody's working. My parents weren't at home. So I asked my grandfather, and I was very excited to vote because we exercise freedom of choice. Very excited. I said, who's George Ivanov? He said, oh, that guy was dead for 30 years. So I was given a choice. I said, Grandpa, where is my choice? What's my choice? If there's only one living person I can vote for, says, grandson, let me tell you about choices that you have in the Soviet Union. You are professional political elite, and you're called a civilian. If you're the elite, you're a civilian. All right. If you're not, you've got two choices. You're either in the navies or you are in the armies. If you're in the navies, all right. If you are in the armies, you've got two choices. You're either artilleries or you are infantries. You're artilleries, all right. You're infantries. You've got two choices. You either get wounded or you get killed. You get wounded, all right. You get killed, you got two choices. They make a newspaper Pravda out of you, or they make toilet paper out of you. They make newspaper out of you, all right. They make toilet paper out of you, you got two choices. You go either men's room or woman's room. And in either choice, your choices go down the toilet. My friends, I heard today somebody saying there's not a lot of people here. I want to remind you, the real change that affected the world the most started by one man and 12 disciples.
So that's Father Alexei Kargut, and he's a great guy. And that's from 2010. Now, I'm not asking you to like his politics. You don't have to be a member of the Tea Party. I'm not asking you to become a member of the Republican Party or conservative or a libertarian. I'm not asking you to change the party you're in. That's not what that's about. The reason why I played that for you is to understand this is a man like myself. He lived in Russia. He was born in Russia. I lived there for work. And the reason why Father Kargut was there and why I find this to be so important, you've got two choices. You vote for the dead guy or you vote for the party. There is no difference between that story that he just mentioned and Representative Kirsten Sinema right now. There is no difference that the Democrats are giving. She either does what the party says or she's gone. There is no freedom there. There is no choice. There is no people. The people of Arizona don't exist in this conversation. It's kind of like with Kirsten Gillibrand. The American people do not exist. Yes, he's in Endicott. Yes, that's correct. He's a local guy. 2010. And so I want you to understand, that's the point. That's how it goes in all these other countries. But you've got all the freedom in the world. You can vote for the dead guy or you can vote for the party. Well, how is that any different than what Joe Manchin is being told? When Kamala Harris went on with Charlemagne, said, oh, no, you cannot question it. You cannot question this. When Joe Biden was talking to Charlemagne, the answer was, if you don't vote for Joe Biden, you're not black. You vote for the party or you're not a human being. That's what Joe Biden said to Charlemagne. That's what Kamala Harris said to Charlemagne. That's what the Democratic Party is saying to Kirsten Sinema in Arizona. If you don't do what we say, you don't exist. That's what the internet overlords do every day when they unperson you, when they say you're kicked off of Twitter or Facebook or YouTube. You don't exist. You must do what we say or else you will be punished. The red flag laws. You will not own a firearm. You will not own a gun, or you will be punished. This isn't about your freedom. This isn't about America. It's not about democracy. It's about obedience. And when that keeps happening, that's why we get people like here with the Germans, and the Germans are saying to themselves, and they're looking at this and they're saying,
President Biden sounds like a man who may harbor secret doubts about democracy winning the day and the century against the forces of China, Russia, and company.
That's them saying it. And I know a lot of people go, well, Mike, you're just this one little YouTuber. You're in the top 63% of all news channels on YouTube out of millions of people. You're small, though. You're not big. You don't understand. I understand what I'm hearing and what I see, and I can tell you, and I'm showing you the connection from 2010 to 2022. I'm showing you why Joe Biden is a brain-dead zombie in office, whether you like him or not, because this has nothing to do with feelings. It's why Kirsten Sinema is being punished the way she is, why Joe Manchin is being punished the way they are, because they are daring to care about you. Does that mean they care all the time? Does it mean that they care a lot? Does that mean that they're perfect? Absolutely not. Does it mean that I think she's worth voting for? Probably not. There's a lot of things I disagree with. You can too. But I think it is important to understand, and I would say the same thing for any Republican doing the same thing, that if you are voting because of the party and not because of the best interest of the people, then there is a problem. And if someone wants to tell me, well, Mike, you don't understand, it's about voting rights, you are a liar. There isn't a black person in America. There isn't a black, let me be very clear. There is not a black American, a black Hispanic American, an American from whatever region and ethnicity around the world, the key word is American, that cannot vote in 2022. That does not exist. Show me one story anywhere in America where someone has been stopped from voting because of the color of their skin. I can show you someone, as I have had on this program, who have said it themselves, and they have sent in the letters, which I have shown you, to the Board of Elections in New York State, that was being prevented from not obeying because someone didn't obey New York State government when he went in to vote, and he was being punished for not obeying the mask and vaccination mandates. He was punished, and the Democratic government of New York State tried to stop him from voting. But I guarantee you, there is no one that is being stopped from voting because of the color of their skin in the United States. There is no one that is eligible to vote that isn't voting. People aren't voting because we have miserable candidates in charge. And if someone's saying, I need to change the voting rights laws, I need to change the laws because people can't vote because of the law, you are a liar. This is about power, period. And maybe I get that little diatribe right there may well get this channel destroyed. If it, I truly say, please, please, more than ever, subscribe. It costs you nothing. It's free. You lose nothing. It means a lot to me to get to 1,234 just because it's 1, 2, 3, 4. It means a lot to me. Costs you nothing, means nothing probably to most people, but it matters because it helps me to protect me from being thrown off, because I dare to say that if you want to vote in America, you can. In any state, everywhere, whether it's Democrat or Republican run, if you want to vote, you can vote. That exists. People aren't voting because they don't like the politicians in charge, because we have far too many politicians that unlike this example with Kirsten Sinema, that they are bowing down to the party instead of bowing to the people, that they are paying attention to what's in the best interest of the public as opposed to paying attention to what's best interest for the political party. And that's the difference. Now, if there is anyone who disagrees with me on that, yes, I am passionate. I am aggressive and I am authoritative in the way that I speak. I understand that. Don't misunderstand that to think that I do not listen or that I'm not willing to hear a different point of view. If you disagree, as I have said, every episode, every live stream, constantly, 607-242-1582. Please respectfully tell me why you think I'm wrong. If you think that Kirsten Sinema is not being punished, if you think that the people of Arizona are not being punished for them daring to not obey the Democratic Party, please tell me why. I'd love to hear it. If you think that there are Americans that cannot vote by law because of the color of their skin, please tell me why. Dow mentions miserable candidates' actions of representatives that exercise authoritative overreach. No wonder people feel the vote is pointless, and so voting apathy is wielded like a weapon to sway elections. Well, that's the whole thing. See, the problem is if people aren't voting, because when people are seeing this in Germany, they notice that in the United Kingdom, everyone is noticing that Americans are less and less involved in our politics. They're not paying attention. In the 1970s, you didn't need a program like this because people knew what was going on. In 2022, you need a lot of shows like this, or a Tim Pool, or a Steven Crowder, or a Ben Shapiro, or Joe Rogan. I'm in none of their class, but we need those guys and someone like me who's a little bit more regional, who's dealing with the southern tier of New York, who's dealing with New York State, who's talking about what's going on overseas, paying attention to those details. You need someone like that because our government is not paying attention and they don't care anymore. They're more worried of making sure that Joe Manchin is in line and not embarrassing Joe Biden, rather than saying, hey, Joe Biden, make a better bill. Hey, Nancy Pelosi, hey, Chuck Schumer, make a better bill. Write a better bill, and then they'll get the votes. They're so desperate to make sure that the Democrats fall in line. All they have to do is write a better bill, and Republicans will vote for it too. They don't need every single Democrat to vote for it. If it's a good bill, Republicans will vote for it too. Yes, and the problem is, and here's the answer, you're right, Dow. And the problem is, to get around this, Democrats are saying, well, if the public is saying we're doing a terrible job, so bad that they're not paying attention, they're not going out to vote, let's give illegal aliens the vote. Like 800,000 illegal aliens in New York City will now vote because it is a law in New York City. You don't have to like what I'm saying. It is a fact. You don't have to agree with the conclusion I'm coming to. Tell me why I'm wrong. That's as fair a choice as you're ever going to get when it deals with anyone on the internet. You don't have to like it. I'm not a progressive. I'm not a Democrat. I don't demand that you must agree with me because I'm black, or because I'm 53, or because I'm straight, or because I'm a male. None of that matters. I'm giving you facts. I'm giving you my conclusions. If you don't like them, that's perfectly fine. You don't have to like them. That doesn't change whether or not they're true or accurate. And if you think my conclusion is wrong, tell me why. I will hear you out. I will pay attention. And even though you see right now that Dal and Jason and Ann, so many people watch this program, not all of them agree with me on every issue. Because we're human beings, they're Americans, And some of them aren't Americans. Some of the people who comment are from the United Kingdom, like Agent Black and a few others. Some of them are from Sweden. Some people are from Germany or Australia. I got people all over the world that watch this program. Your voices are more than welcome. I'm so upset about this stuff. And mind you, unlike Joe Biden, I'm not saying that any election is or is not legal, or that any vote has been legal or not. I have to throw this in because otherwise YouTube will probably try and ban me for life, along with Twitter. I'm not saying any of that. Well, we're popular with the spammers today, at least. I'm not trying to say something about election. I'm talking about you voting and politicians representing you, actually respecting you. When politicians vote straight down the party line and don't think about the bills and don't read what they're writing, they don't respect you. And that's why Joe Biden doesn't respect you. That's why there are 479 Americans stuck in Afghanistan, if not 2,000, abandoned, forgotten, an afterthought. They don't even think and talk about them anymore. It's why, just as we have shown you, we have Secretary Blinken and Joe Biden that are willing and ready to abandon American citizens, American children in Ukraine right now. And they're going to abandon them as bombs drop on their heads because they do not respect you. And they expect you to obey and follow the party line rather than to ask a question like, why are you doing that? Send a C-130 from Germany to the Ukraine, pick up the kids, and come back. It's $200,000. In a country that's spending $6 billion a year. I think we can afford it. And even if we can't, we have $31 trillion in debt. We're not breaking the bank here. This isn't even close to interest payment. This is a rounding of the numbers. Go and get the children. I don't think there's anyone in America that will disagree with me on this. I don't think there's anyone who cares about our children in America and American citizens that will say, Mike, you're being unreasonable here. I could be wrong. Yes, it is heavy. I talk about heavy issues. The show's about heavy issues. We deal with the reality. And you know what? I do it because I want things to be better. I'm not saying I want things to be Republican. I'm not saying that I want them to be conservative. I'm not saying that you have to do what I say. I want better for everyone. I want everyone to do well. And that means if everyone's doing well, I do well. It brings up everybody. Our whole nation does better. If everyone's doing well, everyone in the nation overall will do better. It's the reason why America has had the highest quality of life in the world, why we have enjoyed for many decades the most freedom in the world. But that takes work and effort, and it takes us paying attention and voting. And if we don't do all that, we're seeing where it's going. Biden's giving away the Ukraine. He abandoned Americans in Afghanistan. He's about to abandon people in the Ukraine. What, do you think he cares about Detroit? I can tell you, no. California? No. New York State? No. He doesn't care about the Democrats in New York State. He cares about the New York State Democratic Party. He cares about their votes. He cares about he cares about the money they donate to his campaign. He cares about that. But you in Schenectady or Skinny Atlas, if you happen to be in Rome, or you happen to be in Utica, if you happen to be in Binghamton or in Greene or any of these little cities and towns throughout New York State, If you think that Joe Biden cares about any of you, whether you're a Democrat, a progressive, a Republican, or a libertarian, I guarantee you he does not. He cares about the New York State Democratic Party, and everyone else can go to hell. That's what Joe Biden is concerned about. That's what the Democratic Party is concerned about. And you should be angry. You should be livid about that, especially if you're a Democrat. And I would say the same thing about the Republican Party and their top line. The same for those who are establishment in the Republican Party. I say the same thing, and I have, and I've gotten in trouble for it. Hang on a second. So we got a couple of comments here. Dow said, agreed, the point of the free flow of ideas and conversation produces improvement. It's the only way we get improvement. Absolutely. Graham, hello, Graham. I think this is the first time that you've joined the program. We appreciate and thank you. We welcome all new voices when we hear them and when we see you guys. And Graham asks if I believe in God. And the answer is yes, I do. No one has asked me that before, or at least not in any time recently that I can remember. But yes, I do believe in God. So thank you for asking that question, Graham. As always, you can always ask anything you want on the program, as long as it's a fair, honest, even difficult questions. I don't mind. And you can agree or disagree on this program. That's perfectly fine. As long as it's respectful, why not? Dow mentions that he has a picture in his head of Biden with as dark helmet from the movie Spaceballs. That's funny. That's funny. You thought I didn't remember that movie, Dow? Yes, I do. Spaceballs. I remember that. That's funny. Yes, Graham. So you're asking, why do I believe in God? Okay. So not everyone on the program believes in God. And that's fine. That's not a requirement in terms of politics. I personally believe in God because, well, I think Einstein said it best. God doesn't play dice with the universe. The universe is complex and enormous and interconnected, and it has so many intricacies. I mean, as smart as we are, as human beings are, no one can tell me what's happening with the weather tomorrow. I know there's global warming, global cooling, global freezing. They keep changing that. They have no idea. The weatherman can't tell you what's going to happen in your neighborhood tomorrow, and they're trying to tell us what's going to happen in 100 years or 10 years. They have no idea. We don't know about the chain of reaction. We can't, it's such a big thing. We can't see the way that we're connected to everything, the butterfly effect. We can't see that. And the only reason and the only way those kind of things happen is if there is something above us, something beyond us, that put all those things in place and wound up the little toy and let it go and see what happened. Now, does God have a plan? Probably. Do I know what it is? Absolutely not. Do I know about what God is? Absolutely not. So beyond us as human beings to understand. But I'm humble enough, and I am humble at times, may not always seem like it, but I'm humble enough to understand I'm a human being. I don't ever understand everything. I won't always get everything right, even when I have all of the facts in front of me. And part of the process is to make mistakes, to ask questions, to try and figure it out. And hope I get enough of it right. For me, that all comes together and says there's a God. Now, what we as human beings do to each other, that has nothing to do with God. And you can tell me that God is Yahweh, or he's Allah, or he's Jesus Christ, and the Father, and the Holy Trinity. You can believe any of those or none of those if you want. I'm not here to judge or to pick and choose or prioritize your religion. That's your choice and your freedom. That is your life. That's on you. And as long as you're not running around saying, I've got a suicide bomb, I'm going to blow up children because I think God wants me to do that. No, God, as far as I understand, God does not. And I do not respect someone who says that. Any religion or any religious figures that say that you need to kill others in the name of that religion, I have a problem. I do not respect that, and I think there's a problem. I think that person doesn't understand that religion. But other than that caveat of suicide bombing, going out trying to kill people in the name of God, your religion is your choice. Believe what you want to believe. That doesn't make you a good or bad person. It doesn't take away from your ability to do good things. That's what I believe. I don't talk about religion very much on this program because it really doesn't apply for most things, but that's what I believe. Dow mentions, for me, I've experienced enough to know that without divine intervention, I wouldn't be here. I've said many times on this show, I'm 53 and I should have died a long time ago. I've been caught in floods, earthquakes, fires, car accidents. I've been in the middle of a coup attempt. I've seen most every disaster, man-made or otherwise. And I'm still here. And it's not because I'm the Hulk. It's not because I'm super brilliant. It's not because I'm just that lucky. I'm doing whatever it is I'm supposed to do. I'm trying to make it the best I can. Graham mentions that I understand that you're searching for God. I can't answer that for you, and I don't think anyone else can. The best answer I could give, Graham, is, and it's kind of like what I would say about politics. I would say this about a lot of things in life. Make yourself aware. Read the Torah. Read the Talmud. Read the Bible, of course. Read I forget what they call it in Islam, and it's just escaping me for this moment. But read all of them. Read Taoism. Read about the Dalai Lama. Read about Buddhism, and read all of it. Read all of them. And in that process of learning about all of them, you may run into what is the right answer for you. Speak to people you trust. Ask them what they believe. Read so you understand for yourself, and then make the decision that's right for you, whatever that may be. And I think you can do that to everything. In politics, why am I a Republican? There's a great question that people I rarely ever get asked this. Mike, I get told this all the time. I get told, Mike, you're black. Like, you're kidding. I didn't see the mirror this morning. I wasn't brushing my teeth. Look, I'm putting a cigarette to my head. I didn't notice I have black skin. Yeah, of course I'm black. In fact, I'm a black Hispanic. And by the way, Graham, I hope that answered your question. If it did not, let me know. I will try and answer it better. And people go, oh, you're black. Well, duh. I'm actually black Hispanic, if we want to really get into the details, with some Irish in the family as well. But what's that got to do with anything? Well, then that means you have to be a Democrat. Or maybe, good, Graham, I'm glad. Or maybe that means you should be a progressive. You should be part of like progressive leaders of tomorrow. Or maybe you should be part of BLM because you're black, and you have to agree with that. You have to believe in that. I literally have an argument currently ongoing with a couple of college professors who have literally said to me, but you're black, because I don't agree with something that they believe and something that they're promoting. What does the color of my skin have to do with my cognitive ability, my understanding of the facts and the information in front of me? Facts, figures, comprehension. What's that got to do with the color of my skin, which by itself does nothing? That doesn't limit me. I'm not denied the ability to make choices. And for instance, people should say this more often on all the major TV. They should get on CNBC and MSNBC and CNN and all the rest of them. They should say, Don Lemon should be saying this every so often on his channel, that sure, Don Lemon is a progressive. He should have the balls enough to say he's a progressive, not because he's black, but because he thinks it's the best ideology, and then tell me why. Tell me why it's better. Tell me not what it hopes to be, but why it is better. Because I can tell you why being conservative and Republican is better. One of the easiest ways for me to explain that for anyone, for myself, you can disagree. You can say you don't like it. Fantastic. You don't have to like it. You can tell me you don't agree. Fantastic. You're an American. Believe it whatever you want. Or maybe you're German or Australian or you're from India. Fantastic. You can believe whatever you want. But why I do this, let me explain in the simplest way I can. I absolutely believe, as a matter of life, it is always better to teach someone how to fish than to feed them fish, even if that makes the person hungry. I'll say it again. I'd rather teach someone to fish than feed them a fish, even if that makes them hungry. Now, I didn't say make them starve. I don't want anyone to die because of that. I will help someone not die. I have been homeless. I understand what it is to not have a house. I understand what it is to be hungry. I will help homeless people, and I do this a bunch. It's not something that I ask for any kind of attention from, but I do help people, homeless people, sometimes go out and get food, and I will buy them McDonald's. I'll take them to a diner. I will help them eat because I understand what it is to be hungry. So I won't kill someone for not having food. But I would rather teach them before they get to that point and teach them to make the money, to make the food, to do the things for themselves first, so that they never need to get to the point where they have to ask for something and rely on the charity of others. Not that people can't be charitable. Not that life happens. People need charity from time to time. And sometimes people do things that are like intellectual property. You buy a painting, you go to, you do super chats, whatever, and you spend money. You go to, a GoFundMe or whatever, and you give people money. Fantastic. I'm not telling you can't. But I would rather have people learn how to do something for themselves. I've said to many people, and this is a fact, and you can check it. I've spoken to many people over the years. I've had people on this program, and I've told them, I will help anyone create a YouTube channel, and I will help them to make that channel bigger. And I hope, and I will do that, and I've done that for people with writing, reporters, people who want to go into journalism. I will help you as much as I can with the knowledge that I have. I will help promote you if I can, as much as I can, and I don't care if you make $10 million. I want you to make $10 million. I want you to be the next Jeff Bezos, because in doing that, I might make $1 million. I have made several contracts with advertising and such for this program from time to time for sponsors. And I always tell people, you're going to make more money than I will. The most of the money is going to go to you in that contract. Well, why? You own the company. And I do. And I'm on all the time. This is work that I do. Shouldn't I get paid the most? No. Because if you can make $10 million, I make $1 million, I'm still a millionaire. And you have a motivation to become a multimillionaire. And by accident, if you're becoming a multimillionaire and I get to become a millionaire off of your work and I'm still working too, then we all win. Everyone is better off. Now apply that to politics, apply that to life, apply that to anything you want, and I think it works. And the party that most reflects that point of view and that outcome is Republican. And in particular, a conservative Republican best hits that politically. You don't have to like it. You don't have to agree with it. But that's why I am a Republican. And I damn anyone to try and tell me why it's wrong. Graham asks, do you have an opinion on the organization BLM? Yes, I do. I can't stand it. I think it's a racist organization. And its offshoots, like Antifa and Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, are insanely racist, violent, vile organizations that I do not support. Let me clarify. I want to be clear, Graham. People are not the organization. Same thing with politics. Democrats. I know many, many Democrats who are great people. I have no problem with people being Democrats or progressive. Even socialists. I know people who are socialists and communists. I know communists. I've lived in Russia. I know communists. I don't hate them. I don't like the system. I do not agree with the organization of BLM. Its goals, as stated on its website, as said by its founders, as described across this nation in news report after news report, is a racist and autocratic organization that uses violence to promote its ideas, to force people to agree to things that they would never normally agree to. I do not support any organization that does that. That means BLM, Antifa, Plot, Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, the Democratic Socialists of Ithaca. You hear me mention them a bunch. And that's why, because the Democratic Socialists of America, the Ithaca chapter, has used and has stated in news reports that they are more than willing to use violence to force people into their political views. I do not support that. I do not like those organizations. There's a lot of these. Any of the autonomous zones we've seen throughout the nation, there's a bunch of them. Neo-Nazis, KKK, they're all in the same group to me. I don't support any of those things for that reason. If you have an organization that needs to use violence to either suppress people or to force them to agree with you, then your organization has failed and it needs to disappear. It needs to go away. It needs to never be seen again because that's wrong. I don't care if it's Republican, right, left, Democrat, progressive, doesn't matter. If it falls into that line, I don't believe in it. That's the organization. Now, are there people who are part of BLM that I know who are good people? Yes. Do I agree with their politics? Not at all. Do I think that they understand or look at that organization the same way I do? No. I know people, members of BLM, who say they're looking for the best, they have the best interests, and that's the only way they know how to get it done, and that's the problem. As for Marxism, I'd say for all Marxism, I don't care if it's culture, I don't see a difference in Marxism based on culture or society or income. It's all, socialism is socialism, communism is communism, period. I don't try and find these micro categories, and the only reason why people say cultural Marxism versus social Marxism versus political, you're trying to find a way to make it sound appealing. Marxism is communism, is destructive to the public and the individual. And I do not agree with it. I do not support it. I understand it. I understand what they hope to get with it. And I understand the reality that we have seen everywhere in the world since it first came out, every time it's been tried. It is an oppressive idea, and I do not support that. Dow mentions improve individuals through learning skills to be more self-reliant pays off huge dividends later on, especially during periods of uncertainty. I agree. And that's the reason, and I like to say it with fish because everyone understands. If you know how to go and fish, you will be able to feed yourself. Now, that doesn't mean that every day that you go fishing, you're going to get enough fish to feed yourself. You might still be hungry. I don't mind helping someone who is hungry. But if you are there and I'm saying, I will show you how to fish, and your only answer is, but I just want the fish. I don't want to do the work. I don't want to know how to do it for myself. I don't want to improve myself and make myself independent. Then there's a problem. Something has gone wrong. If you're looking for government to give you everything, there is a problem. Because government is horrible at everything it does. That is just a fact. Governments are the most inefficient things we know. The only thing governments are good at are war and taxes. That's it. They can lay out taxes, they can collect taxes, and they can commit war. Governments are great at that. Everything else, they suck. Almost everything else, individuals can do better. Why are we looking for the government to feed us, to give us things? Their only job is to make sure that we're okay. I believe it was Ben Franklin. Who said, governments should only do that which the public cannot do for themselves. It might be Jefferson. I think it's not Madison. I'm pretty sure it's Franklin. Might have been Jefferson. Governments should only do that which the people cannot do for themselves. And I agree with that. Hang on, I'm starting a fire here. All right. And Graham, I love it. Graham's got questions. I love questions. People watch the show know I love questions. I love people calling in. I love questions. What would you say to the person who argues that Alaska's oil dividend is Marxist and therefore not a good thing? Then they don't understand what a dividend is. People who say that a dividend is a share, it's kind of the same thing as a shareholding. You are getting paid for something that you collectively put into. The people of Alaska own Alaska. People in New York State own New York State. The people in Alaska have the right to create laws and stop someone from going in and drilling for oil, and to select which areas can and cannot be drilled for oil, and which companies can and cannot do that, and the means by which they do that. So the people are working on that, and the people in Alaska work on those oil platforms and those oil drilling explorations and those pipelines and those refineries to get that oil to the rest of the world. They have a absolutely beneficial relationship with that. They are putting in effort, and they are giving up some of their rights, including rights to the land, and they are receiving a payment for that is being dispersed by the Alaskan government according to the laws that the people of Alaska voted for. What in that has to do with Marxism? Nothing. That's completely capitalistic. And it's also democratic. It's not Marxism. To say it's Marxism is to belittle and to ignore all of the factors that are involved here, including the capital investments and the work of the people in the individual businesses that they are reaping rewards from. Jason mentions that the Democratic Party treat minorities as if they are disabled. Mentally disabled. They really do. And you have nothing, it's no more than to say, and I don't know how many times, and people have seen this because I had these conversations in public. I do public speaking. I go to colleges. There are many people who see this program, that know this program. I've run for elected office before, and people have asked me, how can you be a Republican? You're black. Or they say, how can you be against BLM? You're black. Or how can you be against intersectionality, critical race theory, gender identity politics? You're black. And I've had this conversation in public many, many times. And the only reason why they're asking this question is because they have been convinced by the news media and TV and politicians that if you're black, you have no other choice. That there is no other way to look at the facts and come up with a different conclusion. And yet, in just this episode alone, I've shown you several ways, and most importantly, I think, Kyrsten Sinema. This is what happens to Democrats when they do not rubber stamp the Democratic Party. That's what the Democratic Party is about. Joe Manchin, Kyrsten Sinema, how the Democratic Party is dealing with them. The Democratic Party isn't saying, let's write a better bill. The Democratic Party is saying, you didn't obey, and we are going to punish you every way that we can. That isn't a party that's looking out for the people. That's not a party I want to be a part of. That's not the right thing. Graham mentions, do you think it's a reasonable argument that citizens of every American state should pressure their respective state governments to create a dividend like Alaska did? Maybe. People can recommend that. If you want to recommend that for your state, go right ahead. And if the majority of the people in your state agree, fantastic. Although very few states have resources like Alaska does. They may have different kinds of resources. Most states don't have things like oil. And but you could do that. And if you get a majority of people to agree, go for it. It's up to, I think it would very much have to be, what is the specific legislation and what does it say? What is it based on and how is it making this disbursement? So maybe. So that's, so again, I can't say I agree or disagree with that. I'd need to read the bill. For New York State? No. First of all, New York State's in massive debt to start off with. We are billions and billions in debt. I think it's about $8 billion. We're spending money for stupid things. We're giving $15 million, we gave out $15,600 per illegal alien, over $2 billion that we paid them for being illegal in New York State. They committed a crime. We rewarded them for a crime, called it for COVID and for the pandemic, and gave them $15,600 per illegal alien. What in the world? And we're supposed to give dividend? Why? By the way, also, I should be very clear. If there's a dividend, that dividend goes to citizens, not to people in your state. There is a difference. Illegal aliens get zero. Zero. You broke the law. You're actively breaking the law. You knew you were going to break the law. You deserve nothing. Period. People don't like that. I don't care. I'm not here for what people like. I'm here for what I believe are factual and in the best interest of the country. If I could wave a magic wand over New York State economic policies, would you reroute at least some of the tax funds towards basic income? No. Absolutely not. No. I do not believe in the basic income. What is it? The universal basic income. Do not agree with that concept. That's from Andrew Yang, who is, for a billionaire, the most stupid man I've ever met on economics, or misguided, I should probably say. The most misguided man I know in talking about politics and economics. And he is only superseded by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in the absolute insanity and fantasy that he promotes when he talks about the universal basic income. Here's the universal basic income. Get a job, get paid. There's your basic income. Get a job, get paid. There's your basic income. If you're retired, if you're disabled, that's slightly different. We can have that conversation. We're talking about able-bodied, capable American citizens. Go out, get a job. That's your basic income. You want more money? Learn more skills, get a better job. Period. That's it. That's your basic income. Get a better job, you get a better basic income. That's your income. But you're asking a lot of questions about me, Graham, and I don't mind. But this program is actually about all of us. And I hope you see in my answers, I'm talking about America as a total. Because it's not just about me. It's not just about this program. And it's about the way it works. And I think, as an example, with the universal basic income, first of all, we can't afford it. If anyone's ever done the math on basic incomes, it's more money than New York State could possibly generate. So it's meaningless and stupid there. It actually increases the national debt and state debt by an exponential amount. It isn't feasible. And if we tried to do that, we would put ourselves in more debt. We would also be creating more money. We would just be printing more money, which devalues the dollar, and that hurts the poorest people. Because as we devalue the dollar, the things we need to buy, bread, food, milk, it expands in its cost, and therefore you can't afford it. And the poorer you are, the worse it is, and that means poor people are hurt more by that. And that's not just me saying that. Go to the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office. They will give you the same answer, and they have even more data on that than I do. So it's actually in the best interest. So I want to make sure that's clear. So that's why I've never been a fan of universal basic income or a lot of the progressive socialist ideology. They actually, when you look at them and you actually get to the nitty gritty, you're actually hurting people. Part of the reason why inflation's at 7% right now is because Joe Biden printed $6 trillion. $6 trillion. It killed the American dollar. That's almost more money. Remember, during Obama's term, he doubled the U.S. debt to $10 trillion. Joe Biden spent $6 trillion. The total doubling of the American debt under President Obama alone took us from $10 trillion to $20 trillion in debt by himself. Last year, 2021, Joe Biden spent $6 trillion. He spent 60% of what Obama put us in debt for in 8 years. That's not good. That's why inflation's at 7%. And I honestly believe it's closer to real world 11%. And I believe that we are going to be somewhere around 12% by the summer, which means it'll be even worse. So that's how, it's not just I feel like this. And that's the important thing. On this program, we do our homework. We remember, I've been doing this 15 years. I remember the bills and laws, and I understand the consequences of them. And that's why I mentioned them on this program. So I'm glad. And Graham, it's not that I'm upset. It's that I also want you to understand it's more than just about me. It's about understanding our government and how our government is interrelating with other governments around the world. And the further we get from our foundation, the less stability we see in the world, which is why I'm also a conservative Republican, not just a Republican, conservative Republican, because I believe our foundation is absolutely fantastic, best in the world. Our execution, sometimes better, sometimes worse, but it's an absolutely great foundation. The further we get from that, the more destabilized the world we get, And that's why we have Russia's attacking the Ukraine. We have China threatening Taiwan. We have North Korea firing off hypersonic missiles at Japan and threatening South Korea. And we have Iran that's funding global terror around the world. And we have Afghanistan, ISIS, that are invading Burkina Faso and destabilizing. The world's becoming more destabilized. Well, at the same time, America's becoming less democratic, less free, and that's the whole problem right there. So, by the way, folks, I'm answering a question because Graham had said, so fair enough about the origins of the recent discussion about it, but going back to teachings of teaching a man to fish, doesn't he need at least one solid meal a day in order to learn? Again and again to that. So that all connects. And like I said, I understand I won't let you starve. You can be hungry, I won't let you starve. So again, if you're learning to fish and you're learning, but you haven't got it, you don't know it, I'm not going to let you starve. Of course, I would feed someone. I believe in that. That's part of the process. But that doesn't last forever. At some point, you know how to fish. You may be good at it, you may be bad at it. If you're bad at it, it doesn't mean I can't help you, but you should be able to do it. Graham asks if basic income is really financially unfeasible. Yes, it is. If you do the math, UBI is absolutely unfeasible. It does not work. You cannot afford it. It costs $4 trillion. When Andrew Yang offered the United States the universal basic income, $2,000 per person, it works out to $4 trillion a year. You know how much we make in taxes? You know how much taxes come into the United States according to the United States government? $4.1 trillion a year. So every dollar we bring in taxes would go out as a universal basic income. The United States would not have another dollar available to spend on anything else. We'd have no money. So, and then if you tell me, well, Mike, that's right, well, we're just going to do debt spending, which is what Andrew Yang supports. Well, just keep debt spending. Well, that means that we would have to spend double what we're doing. So instead of spending $12 trillion, you would see that Joe Biden is spending $12 trillion instead, because we have to double our efforts. We have nothing coming in to support what we're doing. The only reason we can spend as much as we do is because we take in $4 trillion a year. And it gets worse and worse. So no, if you do the math, it does not work, ever. And the only reason why he suggests it, and if you look up Andrew Yang and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, I've done stories on this before in the program, on the channel. They have both said it is absolutely necessary that to have a universal basic income, you must print money without regard. You just have endless printing of money. You just print. They believe in unlimited debt spending because they believe no one will ever call any loans. And if you keep spending, no one will ever stop. They'll just accept it as normal. That is insanely wrong because it totally ignores inflation and it totally ignores the fact that at some point, someone will say no. And they totally discount the real world examples we have of the Weimar Republic and South America and Central America throughout the entire 80s and well into the 90s. It does not work. Lynn, thank you for answering. Lynn mentioned, I could not remember what the religious tome of Islam was, and it's the Quran. And I just could not think of it at the time. Thank you for mentioning that, Lynn. So, Graham, that's a lot of questions about, and I appreciate it. I know if you're asking the question, there are thousands, hell, millions of Americans who are asking the same questions. That's what this channel is here for. That's why on Sundays, we talk to you, the public. We ask you guys, what's on your mind? What do you want to talk about? Because a lot of people, it's kind of like when we were talking about censure. And we were saying, well, what does censure mean? People don't know. And yeah, it's what you're seeing here. But honestly, what censure means is, while the definition says it's the rebuke of your political party or whatever, what it really means is you're not getting elected again. We're not going to give you money. You're going to be in a primary, and we're not going to say you're great in a bunch of ads. That's what the real world meaning of a censure means. Your party isn't going to support you in your next election. They're going to try and replace you because you're not being obedient. That's what a censure real world means. So now, and so people can understand why it's somewhat important. By the way, we were talking about, of course, Sanema. The Democrats, remember, they didn't just censure her. Democrats chased her into a bathroom and were recording her in a women's bathroom, which is illegal, to berate her for not obeying the Democratic Party, in particular the more progressive wing of it. And I want to quote this from the story at the time. This was October 20th of 2021. And detectives for Arizona, ASU, stated, I don't want that they were looking to bring up charges, but they said, I don't want to overstep the Maricopa County Attorney's Office releasing the names of the individuals who need to be arrested because it's still being processed. And if they choose to prosecute, I don't want to interfere with that. Now, the detective Wolf said that 4 people committed disorderly conduct, disruption of an educational institution, which are misdemeanors, as well as several other crimes that were there. To this day, and if you want, you can go put in Sanema bathroom charges. Do that. I'm going to do this live with you right now, and you can go through 5. I went through the first 5 pages on Google looking for any of the charges that were actually put in place to see that the state of Arizona actually said filming a woman in a woman's bathroom is illegal. That's all I wanted to see. I wanted to see them because that's not in question. We have video. We have an illegal alien in a bathroom with another individual, which I believe is a man, who is recording it live in a women's bathroom as they are harassing and intimidating her. There are other charges I think that could be added, but it is absolutely a violation of that freedom, of that right. And you can go through 5. I went through the first 5 pages on Google trying to find that the Arizona had actually charged this. The police asked, and over again, the police are asking for the charges to be put in place. And what happened is, on January 13th, Arizona, the prosecutors for Arizona went out and they decided to not put any charges in. And I quote from penalcentral.com. The ASU announced on October 20th that it recommended to Maricopa County's Attorney's Office prosecutors charge 4 people with misdemeanors, not for the felony of recording a person in the bathroom, which is, I don't understand why not, but for the other charges as the misdemeanors, as I mentioned. But prosecutors returned the investigation. An investigation was done. ASU and the local police came to the prosecutors, the prosecution of Arizona, and said, charge this crime. The prosecutor said, returned the investigation back to the police and requested more information on the case. The ASU police are still investigating the case. That's as of January 11th. It is 3 months in. There is absolutely undeniable video evidence of the is being questioned. And the big thing for the leftists are, and I think the prosecutors, is that she intentionally, they started this whole thing off in a classroom. They attacked her in a classroom. And she went into the bathroom to get these protesters away from her kids, because she doesn't know who these people are. They could be crazy lunatics. We don't know. She left her students and went into a bathroom to try and get these crazed individuals away from her students and away from herself, because she didn't know if her safety was in danger. These lunatics, and I call them that because they went into the bathroom and attacked her in a bathroom, which there is no reason for, and many Democrats supported, they're still at large. They're being protected. And Bernie Sanders, knowing all of this, knowing that this is the Democratic Party that supported this, that supports attacking Kyrsten Sinema, that they are censuring her because she's not doing what they say, because she, even though they're chasing her into a bathroom, Bernie Sanders is saying, nope, it's a good thing. She should get censored. She shouldn't be reelected because she isn't following the party. Bernie Sanders, let me remind you, is a socialist, self-avowed. He is a communist, self-avowed. He is an independent. He's not part of the Democratic Party. And he doesn't avow the United States government. This is the problem when you have party over the people. And that's why you get people like Joe Biden who are brain dead in office, screwing up international policy, so much so that the German public news is saying that Joe Biden doesn't believe in democracy. Got nothing to do with me being a Republican or a conservative. Germany sees it. The Democratic Party is destroying, I believe, destroying America by doing the things they're doing to Joe Manchin, to Kyrsten Sinema, and demanding, and its left-wing fringes like BLM, Antifa, Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, Democratic Socialists of America, and the entire Democratic Socialist wing are destroying America. That's what I believe. And you can tell me, Mike, I totally disagree. You can say you completely disagree, and that's fine, and I will be happy to hear you explain why. But I'm giving you evidence of why I think that's the case. I've just shown you, and almost every single source that we use on this channel, whether it's in a regular video or if it's on our live stream, almost everything, I'd say 80% of every source that we bring to you is a left-leaning source, a credible, international, left-leaning source. These are their words about their view on you. So let me catch up real quick on the comments. We've been doing, oh wow, it's 3.5 hours. Wow. Graham had mentioned he watched Joe Biden's press conference the other night. What's with the midterms coming up, what's my opinion on Republicans should do to win and course correct the country? Graham, everybody already, Democrats already know. The Republicans are going to win the 2022 midterm elections. That's not a question. What should they do to course correct? Well, one, be prepared to override the veto and repeal a lot of the things that Joe Biden has done already and put in better laws. And if anything, reduce the number of laws that we have. Definitely don't do these 1,000-page, 10,000-page books. That's not a law. Limit government. That's what they should do. Easiest way to say it. Limit government. Put in term limits. Limit the role of government. Reduce its exposure on our individual lives. That's basically it. Dow mentions that he finds the universal basic income as a limiter on the earnings potential. If individuals are taught skills of self-reliance. It comes with risk that there will be failure and in the short term, but adopting and adapting the strategy can limit risk and earnings can be exponentially greater. The achievement of success in that scenario hinges on whether an individual chooses freedom and applies appropriate effort or socialized security. Risk reward. There's always that. There's no perfect answer, folks. By the way, there is no perfect. If you're saying, well, that's not perfect, it doesn't cover everything. There is no perfect answer. We're all human beings. There is nothing perfect. Governments aren't perfect. They're never going to be satisfactory to everyone all the time. The question is, are they efficient and are they effective? On this program, you will always hear us mention that. Is the government, is this elected official, is this action, this law, is it efficient? Is it effective? Reason why I'm against one of the several reasons why I'm against the red flag laws. One, it violates individual freedom. Two, it's ineffective. It doesn't do what they promised it will do. It is not effective and therefore it is not efficient. It is a horrible law. Joe Biden is not effective. He has not been effective in talking with Putin, which he promised he would be. He's not effective with any other nation that has aggression towards the United States. He is not effective. He is not fixed. He hasn't helped our economy. He's made it worse. So therefore, he is also inefficient. I have a problem with any president that is inefficient and ineffective. Period. The fact that they happen to be Democrats, icing on the cake, I guess, for me, because I'm a Republican, but it wouldn't matter. I'd say the same thing about anyone who's a libertarian, conservative, or a Republican. I've attacked and taken on Republicans for that same reason and pissed off all kinds of Republicans across the country for that when they screw up under that same reasoning. That's how we should look at our government. Are you being effective? Are you being efficient? Are you violating the freedoms inherent by birth that we have and recognize in the United States? 3 criteria. I don't care what party you are in. A candidate's good if they can do all 3 of those things. A candidate's bad if they don't do those 3 things. And we should elect people who do those 3 things, that are efficient, effective, and respect the individual freedoms and rights of American citizens. I don't know how people disagree with that. By the way, about once per hour, I do like to mention, because it's important, we want to get to 1,234 subscribers. That's our goal for the year. It means it's easy enough for you. It's all free. It doesn't cost you a dime, but it matters to us. It helps so much. It is so vital. I want to get to that 1, 2, 3, 4. There you go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1,234 subscribers. Not a mountain. I'm not trying to become Tim Pool. I'm not trying to be Joe Rogan. I'm not trying to be Steven Crowder or Ben Shapiro. I'm none of those individuals. I'm just trying to be me. And I just want to hit 1,234 subscribers so that I can better have people like Graham, like Dal, like Jason, to be able to speak with, to ask questions, to answer questions, to ask questions that you probably have never asked before and no one's ever answered for you. And we'll try and do our best. And we're going to hold our politicians accountable. They're already scared, and we don't even have 1,000 subscribers at the moment, and they're terrified. You don't believe me? Go ask Antonio Delgado why he won't answer us for 3 months about the Americans abandoned in Afghanistan. Ask Kathy Hochul why she won't answer us about the mandates, both mask and pandemic medication mandates. There's a lot of politicians who are terrified of us. And that's without hitting 1,234 subscribers. You can help us hit that number and become even more effective. And we really hope we can. And this counts for everyone in the world. As you can tell, we follow a lot of stuff happening around the world as well as in America, because eventually what happened in Europe is going to happen here. Graham mentions, thank you for the broadcast. Oh, you're very welcome. Do you have any suggestions for Americans who are pessimistic about geopolitical stability? As in, they anticipate dealing with way more of the political and economic disruption that we've seen since January 2021. If we elect better members of government, that helps us to elect better people to deal with the geopolitical situations. There's not much we can do about what's happening at this moment. We can do a lot about what's going to happen in the future. The more pressure we put on the political parties now to pay attention and to come back to and be more conservative, the better their interactions around the world are going to be. Joe Biden is doing what he's doing right now because he can get away with it. His party's going to back him up. CNN, MSNBC, they don't care. They're not telling the American people what the rest of the world thinks. They're hiding him. He's protected. If Americans are paying attention, write your letters, contact your members of Congress, do your homework, pay attention, watch shows like this or Louder, Crowder, Ben Shapiro, Tim Pool, Gothics. Oh God, there's so many other people. We're all in the same spirit. Listen to them. Vosh, that's another one. He's on the left. Listen to some of these guys. Look at what we're saying. Russell Brand. I like him. I don't always agree with him, but I find him interesting to listen to. Be aware. Be involved in your politics. Then go out and vote. And that's the best way. And that will benefit everyone in the end of the day. Well, with that said, and I think this was a very productive and really good show, and I'm so happy. I love getting questions, folks. I love answering your questions. I love taking your phone calls at 607-242-1582. And I'm so happy to be involved. And Graham, I hope you subscribe, and I hope you'll be back every Sunday for the live stream, as well as watching our shows throughout. I've been doing this for 10 years on YouTube. Some of the issues that you have a question about, just do a quick search, and I guarantee you, I've pretty much got a video, or probably a couple dozen, on pretty much every question you've asked about today. And I've got videos normally somewhere between 30 minutes to a couple of hours going over all of it. So that may also help. But I invite everyone. You're always welcome on this program, even if you don't agree, even if you have a different point of view. I want to hear your voice. We always look forward to it. Even if you're from another country where they do not believe in, if your country does not believe in your freedom to speak, I do. Even if your government is saying, you probably shouldn't do it, I'm telling you, you should. Even if the internet overlords don't like what we cover, I'm here for you. These are important things. We need to talk about them in the world so that we can improve and make the world better. Is it a lofty goal for a small channel? Hey, everything starts with one person. So let's try. With that said, I want to thank everybody. It's been 3.5 hours. My voice is a little rough. I'm going to go right now, but please leave your comments. Let me know what you thought about it. And I look forward to seeing you every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we will go live with you on all social media that they will allow to speak to you. We're also on Rumble. We have a Discord. I'm on BitChute. I'm on Odyssey. So you can find us wherever you are. Thank you, Graham, and everyone be well.